Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're watching What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Ladies and gentlemen, government is slavery. And here on What on Earth is Happening, we are ending slavery one mind at a time. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. Today is Sunday, March 27th, 2022. This is episode number 248 of What on Earth is Happening. We are going to be continuing today with our revisitation of fake-ass anarchists. This will be part 3 of the extended, revisited version of fake-ass anarchists on the show here today. I've gotten a lot of good feedback over the last couple of weeks. People really liking the depth that I'm covering this topic in, and we'll be continuing that today. If we have time for it, I'll be taking calls this show, but there may not be. It may go into a fourth week for this topic. We'll see how things progress and how far through the slides I can get. So we're, I guess, about 2/3 through the slides, the amount of slides that there are in the presentation. So we'll see how things go today. So I'm going to jump over to my laptop and take care of some housekeeping announcements real quick. There we go. Thank you to Will Keller for the artwork today. I think it's great. I think it sort of sums up the message entirely, that this is really what we're dealing with is children in so-called hyphenated anarchist groups and, fake forms of anarchy that really have no idea what it really is and are like still living with their parents. I think it really encapsulates the message of what I've been putting forward here over the last couple of weeks perfectly. So thanks to Will for that great choice on for the artwork for the title card of today's show. Before we get into even other housekeeping announcements or presentation here, I have a very sad announcement that I have to make, and I'm sure many people in this community are already aware of this bad news. The great Jordan Maxwell has passed away. He passed on the 23rd of this month, March 23rd, and I just want to say what a tremendous loss it is for the entire truth and freedom movement to no longer have Jordan with us here. But Jordan lived a great life. He was a man of unbelievable knowledge, and he spoke that knowledge into the universe, and that is what it is all about. The universe is spoken into existence. Those of us that use our voice here to combat the evil that is going on all around us are doing what we are supposed to be doing. Those who are not doing that are allowing that evil to continue. unabated and unchallenged. And Jordan was not an individual who was content to do that. He saw the wrong and evil that was in the world. He learned about it. He confronted it head on, and he spoke about it, and he educated others about it. And because of that, I think his karma will take him to a tremendous journey wherever his consciousness goes next. So, Jordan, thank you. I consider you a mentor in my life and an example that I tried to live by to amass knowledge, to come to the correct conclusion about it, and to speak it out into the world. So, in memory of Jordan Maxwell and in respect for Jordan Maxwell, I'm going to have a brief moment of silence for his life. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jordan, for the work that you put out into the world to help us to understand what is going on here, and for the tremendous life that you lived that was in service to the truth. So thank you, Jordan Maxwell. Okay, let's move on and go over some housekeeping announcements. So, of course, What on Earth is Happening is on our 3.0 format, as I like to call it. It's a streamlined format with me just producing here at my desk on my main computer. We, again, may go back to a full show production once everything is in line with what my living situation is going to be. I'll probably have some more information on that in the next month or two. And we're on a 6-month on, 6-month off schedule right now. From January through June, I'm going to be continuing that because I'll be teaching the How to Become the True Media seminar in the last half of each year. And I want to talk about that because registration for the seminar is going to be opening this Friday. The One Great Work Network, running strong online, will be adding even more content creators shortly. I have a few more people I'm going to extend the offer to onboard them onto the network. I think we're running at, 59 people so far? I think that's the number. But check out all the great content creators at onegreatworknetwork.com. And I think you'll really like what we've put together on the One Great Work Network. Of course, this show simulcast there and is streaming live on the One Great Work Network as well. I did get around to releasing my Fear of Sacrifice and the Freedom Movement presentation. This is the most recent presentation I've delivered. I actually gave this one in front of a live audience here in Philadelphia in the Germantown section of the city. And it is now available for free online at whatonearthishappening.com/videos. So if you want to check out my most recent presentation, it's also linked on the front page and in the news section as well. But the place where it will permanently be at is on the videos page of What on Earth is Happening. So if you want to check that out, that is live on the website right now. I'm running a T-shirt special on What on Earth is Happening donation gifts. This is a clearance special to clear stock out because I will be putting a new T-shirt order in very soon. But I am going to wait to do that until stock is completely diminished and sells out. We're close to being there, not quite. We still have pretty much just about every design still in stock, but the numbers are diminishing quickly. So if you want to take advantage of this T-shirt special on gifts, it is 40 to 50% off. We're running 40% off, over 40% actually off of all long sleeve T-shirt designs, and all short sleeve T-shirt designs are over 50% off. So if you want to take advantage of this clearance special, visit gifts.whatonearthishappening.com. How to become the true media racing toward us for the 2022 seminar. We are going to be opening up registration this Friday. Registration will open this Friday, April 1st at midnight. So right as the day begins, I'm going to be turning on the registration, and it will be active on gifts.whatonearthishappening.com is where you will actually enroll. The website will have an enrollment button at the top and bottom of the website, which will link over to the actual item in Gifts, the enrollment item in Gifts. So I will be accepting all forms of electronic donation method that I normally accept for gifts. That means that we will be accepting donation in the form of Cash App, GPay, Wise, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Dash. In addition to opening up the seminar for donation through mail-in of personal check or money order. That will be on the website and, of course, explained on the gifts item page when you click through to enroll. So you can also enroll via personal check or money order. Now, if you do want to do it that way, through personal check or money order, your donation must be received by July 1st. So keep that in mind. The donation for mail-in enrollment must be received and in my hands by July 1st. We are closing electronic registration for the seminar. Electronic enrollment will be closed July 4th. And I'll extend it through the whole day, July 4th. You can still enroll, but we will be closing that July 4th at 11:59 p.m., just before midnight. Okay? So let's just briefly talk about the seminar. I know I've gone over this in previous weeks, but for those who may not know what it is and want to take advantage of the great learning opportunity that How to Become the True Media presents, here's what it is about. It's an online technology skill sharing seminar hosted by myself on the Telegram platform. This is a 23-week seminar, 3 hours a week of actual training and course instruction from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday evening from July 11th to December 12th of this year, for a total of 23 class sessions. We will be covering just about every technological thing that you need to know and learn about to do what someone like myself does as a content creator and what the other great content creators on One Great Work Network do technologically. So this means those who know what's going on and have listened to the philosophy and have listened to the explanation of the power structure of our world and the control system that our world actually is, but you don't know how to put that out in a digital fashion onto the internet for the masses of humanity to be able to take in and understand. If you don't understand how modern media works, this is the class that you want to take. If you say you want to help and you say you want to put the word out there and you say you want to get more people to understand so that we can actually be free, then this is the skill set that you need to understand. And it should appeal to beginners. We will cover everything from the very basics of computing all the way up to intermediate level. If you're already an expert at these things, obviously this seminar isn't quite for you. We're not going to get into super technical things. However, we will be covering up through intermediary tasks and skill sets such as video editing, audio editing, making a podcast, making a simple website, how all of that works, and understanding the basics of it so that you can get started. Okay? That's what the whole seminar is about. If you want to see all of the things that will be taught in the seminar, all of the skill sets that will be taught, you can visit howtobecomthetruemedia.com, the seminar's website, and we have a list there of everything that we'll be teaching as part of the seminar this year. There is limited space available in How to Become the True Media 2022 seminar. I will not be bringing in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, okay? So we're going to cap this at a certain number, and then enrollment will close. So if we hit that number early, we will probably close enrollment early. So don't wait until the last minute to enroll. Again, enrollment opens this Friday, April 1st at midnight. Okay, right at the beginning of the day on April 1st. So, after March 31st, 11:59:59, I'm going to hit the button to open enrollment and put that live on gifts, okay? So just as April 1st begins, you will be able to enroll. And I don't recommend waiting until the last minute. Like I said again, the seminar enrollment could close at any time. Just letting people know. I'm not even putting that out there as like a tactic to get more people to come in early. I'm just saying that if I hit the number that I want to have be enrolled in this year's seminar, the amount of people that I want to cap it at to teach, so that the sessions don't get ultra unwieldy and enough people can have their questions answered and their voice heard, etc. I am going to cap it at a certain number. So if you wait too long, you can be shut out. So I don't recommend waiting until July 4th to enroll. Just letting people know that. All right, that's How to Become the True Media. You could check out more at howtobecomthetruemedia.com. The What on Earth is Happening IPFS project is still underway. We haven't had any more people, fully get on board with it. We have one so far. And again, I'm still ironing out some issues with the node. We're going to then share the hash data out there so that people can connect to any of these nodes once they're up and running fully. It's been off to a little bit of a slow start. I think people are a little bit intimidated by the requirements, but it's not really that technical of a requirement. You just need an internet connection that has at least 200 megabits of bandwidth in the upstream direction. Generally, this would be suited for people with a fiber to the home connection, a fiber optic internet connection. If you have that, then you're qualified to do this, to host one of these nodes in your home. So you could read more about the requirements and get on board the What on Earth is Happening IPFS project to make my content completely uncensorable as part of Web 3.0, the permanent web, as they call it. Visit whatonearthishappening.com/IPFS for more details. And if you're interested, you could sign the form there and get the PDF document with the preliminary requirements and specifications. If there is time, I will be taking calls today. We take calls on the Discord platform. You can go to whatonearthishappening.com/Discord. Or if you're already watching on the show page of What on Earth is Happening, just click the connect button in the Discord widget on the site. That will connect you into the call-in room. We may or may not have time for calls today. We'll see how the formal presentation goes. Again, I may wrap up this week and start to take calls. It may go into a fourth week, and then we'll take calls next week. We'll see how things progress today with the formal presentation. Again, I'll be continuing Fake Ass Anarchists, the extended version or the revisited version, however you want to look at it today. And I will be getting to that in just a moment. The ARC 2.0, to wrap up these announcements, ARC 2.0 is available. This is a drive, a storage drive, with all of the important research data that I have amassed over the years that has informed my worldview and understanding of the current reality we're living in here on Earth. And you can send me a drive, a storage device for that, and I'll fill it up for you with all of that data. It consists of about 26,000 audio files, over 9,500 books, and over 3,400 videos from my own personal research archive. If you are interested in the ARC offer, visit whatonearthishappening.com/ARC. And there are rigid shipping instructions, which are actually easy to follow. They're not that difficult. People often make it more difficult than it is. But the shipping instructions are rigid so that your property is protected in both directions when you send it to me and then when I send it back to you. So if you want to get more information on the ARC, you can go to that page, whatonearthishappening.com/ARC, fill in the form there, and you'll get the PDF document with the shipping instructions. If you'd like to procure a hard copy of my presentations on flash drive or DVD, or get other promotional items such as T-shirts, stickers, coasters, keychains, etc., ancillary items like that, you can visit gifts.whatonearthishappening.com, where we have a pretty wide selection of merchandise available for a donation. And if you want to make a straight donation to the cause of What on Earth is Happening, you can do that in many ways at whatonearthishappening.com/donate. Again, all of the methods that we accept at Gifts are there and posted. You could use QR codes or links. And we also have an Amazon wish list, which right now there is nothing on because people have generously gotten the donation items, the technical items that we need to do the work that we do here. So when a technical need does come up and we need a piece of equipment, often I will throw it on that list. And if people are so inclined, they can buy a piece of tech for us. Sometimes I'll just buy it myself if I need it quickly. But if it's something that we do require, but it can wait a little while, I'll put it up on the list. And if people want to, pick that up for us, then that's an option of one way that they could donate. A lot of people like that because they know exactly what their donation is getting, exactly what they're going to be, what it's going to be used for. So once again, many ways to donate, including Cash App, GPay, Wise, 5 different cryptocurrencies, and our Amazon wish list, and check and money order. whatonearthishappening.com/donate. Those are all of the housekeeping announcements. And just as a caveat, I always like to tell people that What on Earth is Happening is cumulative information. If you are a new viewer to the show, you should not watch from here. You should be going back to podcast number 1 and listening and viewing the podcast series for What on Earth is Happening in order at your own pace. Do not skip around. Go in order from podcast number 1, then to 2, then to 3, and so forth, because the later episodes have prerequisite knowledge that is required to be fully understood, that is covered in the earlier episodes. So this show is a cumulative, stepwise progression of knowledge, okay? And you should not skip around when viewing it. Otherwise, if you do that, you're not going to understand what we're talking about in the later episodes because you didn't get the information that covered, that was a prerequisite for understanding that later information in the earlier episodes. So please keep that in mind. I want to make sure that people fully understand that. Let me cue up the slides for Fake Ass Christians so we can continue where we left off last week. And I'll jump back over to the slides. And I'm going to go full screen, so you'll probably not be seeing me for the rest of the show today. There we go. Now, one of the things that I just want to briefly remind people of is where we left off last week. We were talking about religion being the problem of the fake-ass anarchist. And I know that sounds strange for most people to hear, right? Because they're like, anarchy, a religion, okay? Yes, the fake forms of it can constitute a religion, which holds us back from an understanding of the truth. That's what the word religion means in Latin. Relegare, meaning to tie back or to hold back, to thwart from forward progress through a process of binding or tying up. Literally, etymologically, that's what the word religion means. Okay? This is why I say every form of what we call a religion is a false religion. There is only one true religion that binds us back to truth, that ties us together, ties us with truth, reunites us, would be the connotation, to truth. And that is following a path of truth itself. Okay? We can only be reunited with justice through the process of truth discovery. And anything that is false holds us back from that process of reuniting with justice and freedom. Okay? So what we have to do is we have to get all the false religions out of our mind that act as a form of mind control and binding. And what fake-ass anarchists have done is accept certain worldviews and mindsets into their psyche and into their psychological makeup. And those false teachings, those false ideologies constitute a religious belief system that they are desperately clinging on to. And they cannot admit that they were wrong, that they were duped by social engineering into believing in these things, and clean those viruses out of their whole system, of their psyche, out of their mindset. So we started looking at their religions, the religions of fake-ass anarchists, the religions of those who have taken on into themselves a false form of what anarchy is. It's not anarchy at all, actually. It's a control system in and of itself, and it constitutes a religious belief, and some would even say it constitutes a cult belief. Okay? So we are analyzing in turn all of their religious beliefs, all of the psychological mindsets that lead to them falling into a socially engineered form of alleged anarchy, in double quotes, which isn't anarchy at all. It's just another religion. It's just another cult. It's just another control system to hold them back from an accurate understanding of what anarchy really is. Okay? And this is done by design by the social engineers. So we started last week breaking down in depth ego identification as the first form of religion that anarchists subscribe to. And this is something that keeps breaking them down into smaller and smaller little boxes to neatly file them into. Okay? And they identify with their roles. They identify with, different self-centered characteristics and, in general, roles that they play in life. Okay? So, and this is true of not just fake anarchists, but just about everybody. You know, people who classify themselves. I'm an American. I'm a European. I'm Russian, I'm African, I'm Australian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, I'm a capitalist, I'm a socialist, I'm a ANCOM, I'm an ANCAP. It's just another way of bringing in divisiveness so that people fight with each other. It's just another way of making people identify with themselves as something in the world. Okay, something of the world, not identifying as pure consciousness, having an experience. I saw a meme this week that I think very nicely broke down ego identification in one way. It had a person in a cage, and it pointed to the cage, and it said, "This is religion." And then another person standing outside of that small cage was laughing at the person and pointing to their cage. And then the meme pulls back and you see they're also in a larger cage. And then there's an arrow pointing to that cage and it says spirituality. And then outside of that, and a lot of false forms of spirituality out there as well, pointing to other people in a smaller cage called religion and laughing at them. And then outside of that, there was the universe of pure consciousness that was uncaged. This is what I mean by ego identification. Okay? I talk about spirituality a lot here and say, there's a lot of false forms of spirituality, just like there's a lot of false forms of anarchy. And we have to understand not all of them are the same. Some of them may be wildly off base. Some of them may be a little bit closer, but they're not quite there. They're still in the cage. Consciousness gets you out of that cage entirely when you stop identifying as this or that or the other thing. And as I said, there's only one real truth about it. There's only one real divide. And that is, do you believe in authority or not? Do you accept that other people have authority over people's lives? Period. Okay? That's what I call the one true divide. The one true divide is, do you believe in the religion that other people have a right to rule other people? Some people have a right to rule others. That's the big religion that is real that we're talking about. I don't mean that the authority is real. I mean the belief in it is real, right? That's the only thing that ultimately really matters, that does separate people into two distinct castes or groups of people. And everything else is just a divide and conquer strategy to get people to identify in smaller and smaller boxes and never reach that vast expanse of consciousness that truly sets our mind free from all of these control mechanisms, from believing in them as somehow morally legitimate. So we talked about that last week, ego identification. We covered that as the first religious aspect of the diseased psyche of the fake anarchist. Now we're going to look at some other religious points of view, religious ideologies or thought forms that fake-ass anarchists believe in. The next grouping of these religions or false thought forms that hold fake anarchists in the psychological state that they are in because they believe in them so desperately and cling to them so desperately is postmodernism and solipsism, which often go hand in hand. So let's look at what these sick, twisted ideologies, twisted false religions are all about. So you hear a lot the word postmodernism, but many people don't really fully understand it, or they haven't really fully looked at an accurate definition of it. So ultimately, postmodernism can be described as relativism when it comes to truth and knowledge. It means that a postmodernist believes that there really isn't such a thing as objective or absolute truth, that they think that everything is a free-floating, nebulous, form of information that can be seen completely differently by anyone depending on their perspective. Postmodernists think that perspective and feeling is ultimately more important than objective knowledge. And they don't think objective knowledge is a real thing or can really be acquired by people. So let's look at Wikipedia's definition of postmodernism for a basic starting point, and then I'll go on to continue to describe it. But I call postmodernism the ideology or the religion that is decimating enlightenment everywhere. Because you can't really come to a place of enlightenment without knowledge. As a matter of fact, that's what enlightenment refers to. It refers to that you're out of ignorance. You're enlightened because you're out of the darkness of ignorance. You've been led out of the darkness of ignorance through true education, which attempts to convey truth. So, what is postmodernism in our world today? Wikipedia defines it as an attitude of skepticism, irony, or rejection toward what it describes as the grand narratives and ideologies associated with modernism, often criticizing Enlightenment rationality, meaning that the Enlightenment period was a period that basically attempted to convey reason and rational thinking to people so that they can come to a better understanding of how the world really works. And this is a full rejection of those ways of thinking and those ways of coming to an understanding of our world through logic and reason. Postmodernism completely rejects that. Often criticizing Enlightenment rationality and focusing on the role of ideology, meaning taking on a certain way of thinking, whether it's correct or not, just because it advances your ends. That's what an ideology really is. That's why an ideology is different from a philosophy. A philosophy is always based in truth because it's the love of wisdom, and only truth can lead to wisdom, which is right action. Ideologies, on the other hand, can be true or false, but in other words, they're saying they're focusing on the role of ideology in maintaining political or economic power. It means it doesn't matter whether the belief is true or false, as long as it basically gets you to the ends that you're trying to get to. And in this case, they describe it as quite openly and correctly as maintaining political power or maintaining economic power. And that is what the whole role of postmodernism really is, to get people to not think critically, to get people to think in completely relativistic terms and in terms that do not align with truth, so that they cannot enact behavior that is in alignment with natural law, and they will never get out of the slavery that they are in, and they will never stop the people who are conducting the slavery upon them. Continuing this definition from Wikipedia, postmodern thinkers frequently describe knowledge claims and value systems as contingent or socially conditioned. So let's look at that phrase right there. They describe claims of knowledge, meaning that anyone can know anything, and value systems, meaning principles and true values in the sense that, this is morally right versus something being morally wrong. And that's what is meant as a value system. As contingent, meaning it can change depending on circumstance, situation, etc. It's relative. Or socially conditioned. Now, this can be true. Lots of things that people claim to know and or their so-called value systems certainly can be socially conditioned. That is absolutely the case. But in this sense, they're saying that really you should just throw out all of the traditional forms of claims of knowledge and systems of value because they've been put there by other people who we don't agree with. And all it's doing is propping up their worldview and propping up their political agenda and historical context, etc., and their hierarchies. So let's read this phrase again and continue. Postmodern thinkers frequently describe knowledge claims and value systems as contingent or socially conditioned, framing them as products of political, historical, or cultural discourses and hierarchies. Again, so anything that they agree with, right, will be put forward in the form of ideology to maintain their political and economic power. But what they don't agree with, they will frame as an outdated hierarchy. It's part of the patriarchy, or it's, part of an old historical paradigm that we need to do away with and we don't need in the modern world. This is what postmodernism is and what it does. Okay? And you could see how clearly this is used for political agendas, cultural agendas, agendas of control, totalitarianism, authoritarianism, etc. This little meme on the side says postmodernism, all truth is relative, with a little star next to it, and then it says except this statement. That's absolute, but everything else is relative, showing that it's a complete, contradiction of itself, really. Continuing with Wikipedia's explanation of postmodernism, they say common targets of postmodern criticism include universalist ideas of objective reality, morality, truth, human nature, reason, science, language, and social progress. So let's look at these in turn. It says they have a criticism of universalist ideas of objective reality. So right there, this ties in with solipsism. They would say that there's no actual objective reality. See? So that leads to there being no truth. And that leads to there being no morality. Because how could any behavior be objectively truly good or truly bad? How could something be truly moral or truly immoral if there's no truth regarding the objective morality of that behavior? So you see, postmodernism, when it comes to the relativism regarding what is true, will lead to relativism in the moral domain, which is moral relativism, which we're going to get to as one of the religions of fake-ass anarchists. Okay? So, and it goes on to other things, human nature. Now, I don't claim to be in line ideologically with what many people believe about human nature. I've said this multiple times. I don't think human nature is good or bad, as some people who of religious backgrounds or political or social backgrounds want to teach. I do think there is an objective reality regarding human nature. Human nature is that human beings are a programmable species. We can be programmed through information to believe certain things that are completely untrue. We can be programmed with certain information that leads us how to objectively come to the correct conclusion regarding what is true or not if we are given those tools. If we're given those tool sets, which is the trivium, the quadrivium, etc., we can come to a rational understanding through reason, through logic, of what is objectively true regarding morality, regarding the truth of what's going on in our world, regarding what human nature actually is, that it is simply the programmable state. But, they reject basically all ideas of objective reality, morality, truth, human nature, reason, even, the ability to reason and come to logical conclusions about what is true and real. Science, language. Language is a big one. They want to constantly trim the vocabulary and put people into boxes of how they can speak with politically correct language, which limits people's understanding. And social progress, how they want it to go toward a socialist direction, how they want it to go toward an authoritarian direction, etc. Accordingly, postmodern thought is broadly characterized by tendencies to self-consciousness, self-referentiality. Again, this is all about ego identification, as I call it. That's what self-consciousness and self-referentiality really ultimately mean. Epistemological and moral relativism. So epistemology is, how do we come to know what we classify as knowledge? What are the methodologies of going through that in a stepwise logical progression to be certain that we have the correct answer and that we understand how it really works? That's epistemology in a nutshell. Ontology is, the study of the nature of existence and reality. And then epistemology is, how do you get there? How do you get to an accurate understanding? It's how do we come to know what we know? So they are epistemologically relative, meaning you don't have to have a set standard of how to get to there. There doesn't need to be an actual logical progression, a literal method like the trivium and quadrivium that is about quantification and identification of the facts. No, we can get there through how we feel. We can get there by what we've already taken on as our ideology. And if this leads to where we want to go, then we go there, even if it's completely false and leads humanity down the garden path toward authoritarianism and ultimately totalitarianism. So they're epistemologically relative, which is a very, very dangerous position and assumption to make, that you can get to truth, and you could even look at the methods of getting the truth as completely relative and arbitrary. And then, of course, the big one, and it's right there in Wikipedia's own definition, moral relativism, pluralism, and irreverence. Okay, so moral relativism, again, is the idea that there's no objective standard of right and wrong behavior, that behaviors can be seen through human perspective as completely right or wrong in different cultural contexts and different situations. There is no objective standard of right and wrong. And that is Satanism. That's the second tenet of Satanism, right behind egotism. So if you look at these tenets, right? Self-consciousness and self-referentiality, ego identification, huge part of egotism. That's really the first tenet of Satanism. And epistemological relativism and moral relativism right there, that you could look at that as that comprises the second tenet. Because you get to moral relativism through epistemological and ontological relativism, that there's no such thing as truth. What's true and correct is whatever is just good for me and suits my ends. Then from there, and that's part of egotism. And then from there, boom, you get to moral relativism. Because if there's no such thing as truth, there's certainly no such thing as moral truth. And so everything from a moral perspective can be looked at relativistically. Pluralism and irreverence, that just there's many, many different, ways of looking at things, and no one perspective is more valid than another. And irreverence is, like blasphemy, and, just looking at everything as it's either a joke or it's worthy of ridicule and disdain. It's part of nihilism. It leads to nihilism ultimately. It leads either honestly to secondary psychopathy and or nihilism, which one could even say nihilism as a part of secondary psychopathy. It doesn't lead anywhere good, most certainly. This is something that is a destruction of classical ways of thinking that led to the Enlightenment period that obviously had been around for thousands of years and largely lost to humanity in the Dark Ages and even before. And, they want to squelch it out of the modern world as well, which is why they're calling it postmodernism. They want to get past the whole idea that human beings can understand truth. We can come to an understanding of truth, that truth even exists, that morality even exists, and we can come to an understanding of objectively what is true objective morality. That's the last thing the controllers and social engineers of our world want. They want people thinking in purely relativistic terms, because then you're never going to get to truth, you're never going to understand objective morality, you're never going to understand rights, and therefore you're going to lose your rights, you're going to allow the evil that's taking over our world to just take our rights away. And that's how slavery is brought in unchallenged. The second part of this religion that I'm putting these things together because I feel they so much go hand in hand with each other that they're not what I would say completely identical, but they're so close that, you'd have a hard time even separating them as ideologies. You almost have to accept one to accept the other. So hand in hand with postmodernism is solipsism. And again, I covered this in episode number 1 of What on Earth is Happening, so this is like a review, but it's absolutely worth repeating to hammer this into people, especially people who really, didn't really make a large-scale study of it and understand how widespread this religion is in our world, especially in fake anarchist circles and especially in authoritarian circles. So what is solipsism? So let's look at the etymology. The word solipsism is derived from the Latin adjective solus, meaning alone, and the Latin pronoun ipse, meaning self. So quite literally, if we put them together, the self alone. The self all alone by oneself. No one else there. Okay? I'm the only one, all by myself. You could word it, through whatever mechanism gets you to the understanding of what really the words mean when put together in modern colloquial language, but you get the idea. Okay, it means nothing else matters except the way I perceive it. Okay. And we all know people like this, that they're the center of the universe revolves around them, as, in the graphic. And they don't care about anything outside their own comfort. They don't care about anything outside their own perception. They don't care whether the world's going to hell in a handbasket. They don't care whether the whole world's enslaved. I hear people tell me all the time, I just don't care about anything unless it affects me. If it doesn't affect me, I don't pay attention to it and I don't care about it. So they don't care whether every other person's rights could be being taken away. And as long as their rights are allowed to be left intact to their comfort level, then so be it. Doesn't matter what's going on that's wrong, that's morally wrong around them. They don't care. So this is my definition of solipsism, or it's a general definition, I really should say. Solipsism is the ideology that only one's mind is sure to exist. They contend that this religion and its adherents contend that knowledge of anything outside of one's own mind is unsure. Hence, there is no such thing as objective truth. And nothing about the external world or the nature of reality in general and its workings can actually be known or communicated to others. Imagine how sick and diseased of a mindset one has to be in. I would say this goes beyond religion. It goes beyond a religious belief system. It's not just a false ideology. It's not just a false religion. I would have to describe solipsism as mental illness. This is pure mental illness. This is someone whose mind is so fucked up from whatever trauma that they've been through in life that they are actually inside an internal shell. It's a protection mechanism inside themselves where they're trying to say, I'm pulling the blankets up over my head on the bed and reality goes away. There is nothing else that exists except my own mind. And they're doing that to shelter themselves from reality because they're fearful little children with no real ability to reason and think, no real understanding of the world. It's a completely childish, imbecilic, it's a fearful, dumb child. Let me even refine that. It's a fearful, dumb, traumatized child's worldview. A fearful, stupid, traumatized child's worldview. That's what it is. Okay? It's a mental illness in the mindset of the equivalent of a fearful, stupid, traumatized child. That's probably the best way to put it. So it is a mental illness that exists in the equivalent of a mind that, regardless of biological age, that would exist in the body and mindset of a child who has been traumatized, who has no knowledge whatsoever, who is completely stupid, who is willfully stupid, and who is a completely fearful coward. This is somebody who wants to say, I want to make sure I can never have any responsibility in life. I want to remain permanently irresponsible for myself and for anything around me because I'm going to claim I can never know anything. So if I can never know anything, I can never ultimately be responsible for anything. And so you see, that is how the child mindset attempts to remain in control of the personality. Okay? They're saying, I'm never going to grow up. I'm never going to become an actual cosmic adult. How can I do that? What excuse can I give to everyone around me for not being responsible for myself or anything that occurs? And the answer that the sick, twisted, completely diseased mind and psyche comes up with is, I know, I'll claim that knowledge of anything is impossible. Because if knowledge of anything is impossible, that knowledge is what ultimately imparts responsibility to people. When you know, you are ultimately responsible. That means you have the ability to respond to the situation because you have knowledge. So the solipsist is the child who wants to remain permanently a cosmic child in their psyche. And so this is the excuse that the sick mind, the completely diseased mind, has invented to try to remain a child eternally. That's what it is. Think about how crazy one has to be. How mentally diseased one has to be to say there's no such thing as anything that is objectively true. Everything is a matter of perception. And nothing about the world can be known about how it actually works. And even if you were to somehow discover how something works, you can't actually communicate it to another being. And I agree, communicating how things really work is difficult. I've learned that over the past 15 years. People are hard-headed, they're stubborn, they're programmed. Their ego is in the way. Their beliefs are in the way. Their religions are in the way. And they don't want to admit that they're wrong. And that's the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is no real knowledge begins until people let go of the false things they're holding on in their own mindset. And that starts with an apology to creation. You know, Jordan Maxwell basically once said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, that if you don't have an inkling of all the lies that are taking place in this world and all the evil and all the harm that is taking place, and you just want to go and live your own selfish life and never say anything about that, never try to make that right, he said, you are messing with divine justice. You're in the way. You're complicit with that evil, and you're actually standing in the way of divine justice. He also said, paraphrasing another researcher, I tremble when I think that God is just. Because that's what God is. God is law and justice. Not in man's terms, but in cosmic terms. And again, trying to claim we have no responsibility for what's taking place around us by claiming we can't ever know is messing with divine justice, ultimately. And those who say that they know and they still don't speak, they're messing with divine justice. And guess what? I'm going to keep saying that. I'll keep putting it out there. I'll keep speaking that truth because it is true. But guess what? They're going to find out whether anybody says it or not, because everyone dies. Everybody eventually dies, and everybody will find out that largely they're going to be held responsible for what they didn't do, what they didn't take responsibility for, what they didn't become involved with at a deeper level. And, you know, I'll just keep saying that out there to people, but you all know it, and you all know who you are, and you all know it isn't right, and you all know you're going to be held to account for it. And guess what? You're not going to like what is going to be involved in holding you to account because you think you're going somewhere better than here. Let me just repeat that last part. Okay? You get one of those for that thought. If you actually believe that your soul is going to go anywhere to explore, to have any other experience other than the suffering that is contained here on earth and worse, you're not moving forward. You're not progressing. If you didn't get the lesson that you are here to speak the truth to others, to put out through your voice testimony of truth regarding what is going on here and its wrongness, its injustice, and you're not doing that, and you believe your soul is going to go on to some better existence and some better experience, there's a real good one. Okay? It's a joke if that's what people believe. It's a joke. And you know who the last laugh's going to be on? Nobody but your sorry ass. Solipsism is both a false religion and a defining hallmark of spiritual infancy, as I've been explaining. A false religion and a defining hallmark of spiritual infancy. Departing from this diseased ideology, meaning admitting solipsism is a disease, it's a mental illness, it's a cult religion. Leaving this cult, setting this bullshit religion down and walking away from it forever and admitting what a psyop it is and what a complete degenerate loser ideology it is a surefire sign of the beginnings of human maturity and spiritual development. So we leave the realm of spiritual infancy and we develop the realm of, we enter the realm of human maturity and true spiritual development when we admit solipsism is just a crock of shit. It's a socially engineered crock of bullshit to get people to say, I can't possibly have any responsibility for anything that's occurring because I can't know anything because knowledge is impossible. That's all it is. The ultimate excuse is what solipsism is. Those who are truly awake fully understand that objective reality, of course, does exist and that truth absolutely can be known. We're not here to be tortured with the impossibility of understanding something. Of course, the workings of our reality can be understood and can be known by us. And I'm not talking about the mind of God. Again, once again, when we define truth in podcast number 1 on this show, I'm talking about the ability to recognize what is going on within us and around us. The ability to recognize that which is, that which has occurred and that which is occurring. It isn't knowing the totality of the mind of the all. Okay? This has to be fully understood that that's not what we're talking about. We can know the truth of what is happening here on earth. We can know the truth of all of the ways that the ruling class has manipulated humanity and has protected their power structure. We can know objective morality. We can know what brings our behavior into alignment with it and what is out of alignment with it behaviorally. We can know all those things. We can know how freedom works. We can know what we need to do to bring about freedom and get out of the state of slavery that humanity is currently in. These are not things that the universe put here to torture us with our inability to ever understand. If we work hard enough and we use the methods of truth discovery, we can know these things. And then we can put our behavior into action to do the right thing regarding them. So that's a summation of what solipsism is. I covered it pretty in depth in podcast number 1. So let's move on to the next religious mindset of the fake anarchists. The next section of false religions, false ideologies, diseased and imbalanced mindsets is atheism and scientism. So I've talked a lot about these in many of my presentations, but let's delve into them in review here. So let me just unequivocally state, ladies and gentlemen, okay, in this broadcast, let me unequivocally and definitively state, there is no such thing as an atheist anarchist. Let me say that again. And let me make as many enemies as I making this definitive statement of truth. This is not my opinion. This is not my perspective. This is the eternal and definitive truth of the matter. Anyone who claims to be an atheist, by definition, can never be an anarchist. It is an impossibility to simultaneously claim to be an atheist and claim to be an anarchist simultaneously. There is no such thing as an atheist anarchist. Get as offended as you fucking like, all the moron atheists out there. There is no such thing as an atheist anarchist. Moron. Fake-ass anarchist moron. Yes, it's an ad hominem. Yes, it's still true. You see, there is such a thing as true ad hominems. The moron who thinks that they're an atheist and simultaneously believes that they can still be an anarchist while claiming to be an atheist is a fucking moron. So that ad hominem works and it's true. You see how that works? You know, not all ad hominem attacks are false. If someone's actually a fucking moron, calling them a moron is true. You get it? I don't know if people are sophisticated enough to even understand what I just said there, but I made the attempt. Okay? A real, true anarchist understands natural law and the law of freedom. They understand that freedom is inextricably tied to objective morality and whether human behavior is in alignment with it or not. The laws of morality are not put into creation by humankind. They are not arbitrary ideas. They are not arbitrarily chosen ideas. They are not constructural ideas that exist only in the mind and in the brain and in the physiology. They exist in the natural world, and they were put there in the natural world to govern behavioral decision-making through consequence. No 3D being put that dynamic of law into the natural universe. The creator of the universe put that into the universe. So you don't need to have a religion, but if you claim that there is no creator of the universe and its laws, you cannot be an anarchist, because the only true form of anarchy is the one that takes natural law into account, because natural law is the laws that ultimately govern behavioral consequence and create freedom or slavery, rulership or its absence. Okay? So it is a contradiction in terms to claim that there is no creator of the universe. I didn't say you need to be a religionist. See, this is where the dialectic, polarizing dialectics come into play. Just like they want you to pick left or right political ideology and then believe there's no place on a political spectrum for freedom, for actual absence of the rulership of others, the absence of authority. It's the same thing that they want you to do in the so-called spiritual domain by choosing either believing in a religion or being an atheist. I am neither. I don't have a religion. Religion is just as big of a crock of bullshit as not believing that there is a creator of the universe, a force of creation that is based in law. What I look at and perceive to be that force of creation is non-personal and is not like the God of any religion. It's something that is ineffable and goes beyond all those attempts at defining it, but it is based in law. It is based in pure truth, pure consciousness, and law. And it works like a computer program. It doesn't take into account the reasons that you did what you did. If you fall on the keys because you tripped and you fall on the keyboard and the program executes total nonsense because you tripped and fell on the keyboard, the computer does not care that you tripped and fell on the keyboard. It just executes what your body smashed into the keys accidentally. Natural law works the same way. It doesn't matter how fucked up your mind is. You're going to get the consequences of your behavior. The end. It doesn't care whether you didn't understand objective morality. It's always just there. It's a constant. It's a universal constant and a universal factor that can never be removed from creation because it was put there by the force of creation, the consciousness of creation that is law itself and comprises law and sets the laws into motion. And then it steps back and does not interfere. Because to interfere would preclude free will and freedom of choice. And that is the idea that the universe actually is based in the spirit of love, not in the spirit of control. It put the laws into effect that define the optimum benefit for all within creation. And then it grants the consequences through, after the free will behavioral choices are made, you get the consequences so you can learn from them. For your betterment, for your learning, for your growth. It's not that hard, folks. It really isn't that hard. Most people's ego is in the way of understanding what natural law is and how it functions. So, anarchists who claim to be atheists are buying into this polarization dialectic of choose between religion and atheism. No, I refuse to choose between either of those because they're all religions. See, saying choose between one of the cultural religions and then your other choice is atheism, right, is the exact thing as saying choose between left-wing and right-wing politics and anarchy isn't on the political spectrum. That would be moderate, right? Well, all of the extreme religions can go in either direction, and then atheist is the moderate where there's no choice that represents true freedom. It's the exact same thing. It's the same dialectic, except you're operating in the so-called spiritual space instead of the political space. And people still can't see how it works because they don't understand the mindset of the social engineer, of the dark occultist, of the sorcerers of our world. They don't get it. They don't get how they think and how they engineer these choices for you to put you in this place where you'll never choose something that leads to freedom. Unless you get your mind out of their bullshit religions. So the atheist is the left brain dominant individual where their brain is imbalanced toward the left brain and they don't have enough right brain dynamics in the whole makeup of how their brain is operating and firing. Once again, we talked about the left and right brain paradigm being largely true. It's not exactitude where I'm saying only their left brain functions and their right brain doesn't. That's not how the neuroscience works. Understand what's being said. It's a generalization of how left brain thinking and when you're locked into it will lead to left brain imbalance, left brain dominance, where the firing of neurons in the right brain isn't actually operating at full capacity the way it ultimately should when the brain is in coherence between hemispheres. That's what I mean by left brain dominant, left brain imbalanced. Their prevailing worldview comprises these basic characteristics. Matter is primary and supreme. Matter is everything. All we need to do is study matter more and more and more in depth. Collide bigger and bigger particle colliders so we can break down matter into smaller and smaller particles and ultimately learn nothing of ourselves. We're going to try to learn the physical things and we have no idea what's really going on inside of us. That's what a jackass depicted as the person wearing the shirt saying I'm an atheist, debate me, is. Left brain imbalanced child, never grew up spiritually, never grew up from a cosmic perspective, and believes that science is going to give you all the answers, looking into matter and physical dynamics is going to give you all the answer because you're afraid of looking into the thing that you ultimately must look into, and that's your own mind and the reasons you made the decisions that you made and the reasons you became how you became. You don't want to look into that. You want to run away from that because you're fearful of it. You know, that's why people become either extreme left brain imbalanced and they go into this matter's all there is. There's no such thing as consciousness. There's no such thing as spirit. Or they go into right brain imbalance of bullshit religionists. God will tell me everything. All I need to do is read the Bible. I don't need to look at what's going on in the forms of control and totalitarianism that are taking place all around me. This world doesn't matter. It's made up of matter. That's of the devil. You don't know that? Oh yeah, my preacher told me so, and during the Sunday liturgy. Yeah. You got to realize they're just equally little children in their mindset. And I get why people go and flock to atheism. It's the same reason I went and flocked to Satanism, because a big component of the form of Satanism that I flocked toward in my youth was atheism. It was not spiritual Satanism. It was atheistic Satanism. They set up all of the pins just to knock them down. It's like set up all these bullshit religious mindsets just so we can get people to see how ridiculous they are, and then they'll float right into our arms and either choose Satanism or atheism. It's not that hard to figure out, folks. All you got to do is try to put your mind into the mindset of a sick psychopathic social engineer who is trying to control everybody and everything. And you got to keep them away from natural law. Because once they understand how that works, it's game over for them. So their worldview is God and spirit is non-existent. The universe is a grand cosmic accident. All matter and laws of existence burst into the universe at one point in the distant past for no reason or purpose. From an infinitesimal point of nothingness. And if you buy that, then I'll tell you how everything worked all after that. But you got to buy that first one. Yeah. The physical world is all there is. Only physical laws exist. No natural laws that govern behavioral consequence. Consciousness is either purely mechanical, electrochemical, or meaningless altogether. And institutions of science are the sole arbiters of truth. Truth can only come from what the institutions of science in this reality tell us that it is. And I obey them unquestioningly because they're the priests of my religion, you see. Excuse me, I'm just taking a drink. Yeah, see, they have their own robed priest class, right? But it's wearing the white robes of the scientist instead of whatever color robes, white, black, or otherwise, religious priest class wears. But they have their own religious priest class called the scientist, and he wears the white robe. And they still can't see how their belief system is a religion. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not attacking actual science. But there's a difference between actual science and science so-called, just like there's a difference between true anarchism and anarchism so-called. There is such a thing as a true anarchist, as true anarchy. Then there's somebody claiming something else is anarchy when it isn't. Well, there's such a thing as true science. Then there's people who claim, no, this is what science is when it isn't. This is what I meant when I talked about in the first section of this presentation, people claiming to be things that they are not. An atheist like this is not a real scientist. Because if they don't take consciousness into account, if they don't take the laws of reality that even govern behavior into account, they can't understand big aspects of social science. How are you ever going to understand the law of freedom if you dismiss natural law because you dismiss a creator? You're not reasoning from the observations and the facts. You're reasoning from the conclusion of what you want to believe. This is called reasoning backwards. You're reasoning from the conclusion that you want to reach instead of reasoning from the observed specifics and then coming to a general understanding of them, which is how science really works. That's how true science really works. That's the true scientific method, which if the atheists learned about the trivium and quadrivium and the real scientific methodology, they wouldn't put so much faith like they do religiously in the modern institutions of science, because they would see that those modern institutions of so-called science, in double quotes, are not really using those true methods. Largely what is directing their methods and their observations and their ultimate conclusions is money. You know, government grant money specifically, because that's what's largely directing and promoting science these days. They're not making them do any real science. There's hardly any true investigative independent science going on. It's what do the people who fund you want you to conclude? And if you conclude the things that they want you to conclude, the paycheck still keeps rolling in. Once you contradict what the people who are funding the science want you to conclude, then the paycheck stops rolling in. And what do you think scientists are more concerned with? The truth of the matter or whether the paycheck continues to roll in? And if you don't say whether the paycheck continues to roll in, you're lying to your fucking self. Because that's all that drives modern science. They're just as able to be paid off as doctors are. What do you think? Doctors don't know that the whole bullshit coronavirus was a whole bullshit situation that wasn't as dangerous as the government and organizations within the government were saying that it is? Of course they did. But they were given the ultimatum, you either go along with our narrative or you're out of a fucking job. And again, that's what people choose. Fearful people who don't give a fuck about the truth choose money over reality and truth. They don't care what's true or real or right. All they care about is being paid, because they're losers. They're low-life fucking loser, immoral trash. And most people are that. That's the reality of the world we live in. Most people will take the god of money any single day over doing what is right, over speaking what is true, over going against the mainstream narrative and being ostracized and then cut off from funding. They'll choose that. They will not choose the uncomfortable situation that will have to be chosen to continue to pursue and speak the truth. And that's what makes them bad people. That's why they're bad people. That is the definition of what a bad person is. A bad person doesn't care about what's true or right. A bad person doesn't speak what is true or right if any of their comfort is threatened. That's why they're immoral trash. They could be paid off just like anybody else can be paid off. The whole problem with this whole rotten, godforsaken world and all of its rotten, godforsaken people are almost every human being in this world, if offered enough money, will choose that which is false and immoral over that which is true and moral, if it means that they are paid enough, or if it means that enough will be removed to create significant creature discomfort for them. And they will choose not to undergo that discomfort in their lives rather than speak the truth and take the discomfort. And that's why they're bad people. That's the reason they're not moral. That's the reason they're immoral, bad people. That's what it means to be an immoral, bad person. And that's what many of my listenership still doesn't understand. That's what many of my viewership, you want to make excuses for people like that and still say that they're good. No, they're not. They're bad people. If what I'm saying describes you, it means you're a bad person. I don't care whether you like my podcast. I'm going to tell you the truth. If what I just said there describes you, if you're somebody not speaking out because of what you have to lose, you're a bad person. If you're not speaking out because you don't want to lose the creature comforts you currently have, you're a bad person. Deep down inside, it doesn't matter any of the other good things you do. It means you are characteristically defined as a hallmark, as a general set of characteristics. You will go against what is true and right just to remain comfortable. And that's what a bad person is and does. And that makes you a piece of fucking trash deep down inside that you're going to be held to account by creation for that choice. The people who might suffer in this reality are going to have a completely, and they will choose to suffer for the truth, will still have a better experience with where their consciousness is going to go versus where yours is going to go. And you could say all you want, that's like a religious dialectic of heaven and hell. And I'm not saying that I believe in those simplistic religious concepts. I'm saying that consciousness, the way it progresses and develops, is not going to have the same type of experience depending on what it did and didn't do in particular lifetimes and realities. The people who sat and didn't use their voice to speak the truth to others because of whatever creature comfort they felt that it was going to take away from them, or whatever discomfort they thought it was going to bring to them, are going to be held spiritually to account. Their consciousness will be held to account for that, whether they believe it or not. Because making that choice is an immoral choice. And again, being an atheist is another excuse. It's just like solipsism on the other end. Solipsism doesn't want to believe there's any truth. Well, atheists don't want to believe that their consciousness is going to be held to account. If they can get away with anything they can get away with here, that's all that matters, because the flesh is all there is. The body is all there is. They're going to be shocked to shit on the day their consciousness leaves the body and they realize, my body may be ending, this incarnation of my body may be ending, but I still have a consciousness, and that consciousness is going to have to be held to account and be responsible for what it did not do. Because I bought into the bullshit religion that there's no spirit and there's no creator and there's no laws that govern the consequence of behavior. But again, like I said, everyone will find out. You know, I'm just saying it so no one can really say the information was never spoken and the truth was never presented. That's what I'm here to do. I can't even make the claim I'm here to convince everybody, because I know there are people who are so fucking hard-headed, they're going to go to their grave, they're going to die in that state, and that's when they'll find out. But you'll find out. And it's okay. Stay fucking hard-headed. You're only spiting your fucking self. It's not hurting me. I've done what I need to do. I've learned what I needed to learn, and I've done what I needed to do. I'm ready to go today, my friend. If that's what the universe has in store for me, I'm ready to die instantaneously, because I know I'm okay. I'm not just saying that. I know it definitively. I did what was required of me, above and beyond the fucking call of duty, unlike most people. You know, and you have the other jackass religionists screaming Jesus all day on the other side, who's right brain dominant, doesn't think or reason through logic, is all rooted in belief because their right brain is what's predominantly dominant, and you know, they're locked into the whole, you know, all over the place, can't reason, can't think logically, you know, spaced out, religious nutter mindset. You know, everything is of God, everything is, you know, spirit is primary, screw matter, it doesn't matter what happens here. The physical world is evil, or it should be ascetically shunned. God demands strict obedience to his arbitrary and often conflicting set of rules in every religion. And yet, somehow, just one of them is right. There's no problem with my religion, and the problem is all the other ones. Goals in the physical world should not be focused on, but rather we should focus on the promised afterlife with God. I mean, this is just another mental illness. You know? And you could see, oh, things you're saying have similarity to this, Mark. Yeah, but it's not a religious point of view. It's science of how the actual universe really functions. This is why people have thought about these things and they've gone off the rails. This is when right brain thinking goes off the rails. It becomes this religion instead of staying in the middle between a place of wanting to understand how it works through scientific discovery and understanding that there's a spiritual dimension to existence. That's the point of balance that is just as equally hard to tread as the political spectrum, the point of balance at the very top of the true political spectrum that I presented, which represents true freedom. Not being a religionist or atheist, you could come up with a whole spectrum for that and put that little point, that tip at the top, of that mountain. That's what a person who is what I call a simple deist, but understands natural law and is an anarchist, an anarchist deist, an anarchist simple deist would be at the top of that point. Whereas true anarchy would be at the top of the point of the political spectrum when consciousness is taken into account and we would plot the function as a function of consciousness. People can barely even conceive of that idea because they're so locked into the dialectic of religion versus atheism. Fuck all your religions. Shove them all up your ass and then go take a dump in the toilet and flush them where they belong. Okay? That's what I think of all your fucking religions. That's what I think of fucking atheism as well. It's all the same shit. Put it where it belongs. Down the fucking toilet bowl and leave it there. Okay? And I mean, it's just got to be said like that because I'm not interested in the support of any people like that. Turn the fucking show off. Go fuck yourself. You're not my friend. You didn't learn anything from what I had to say if that's your thinking. I don't want anything to do with religionists and fucking atheists. Really, truly, the truth really being spoken. Will I continue to sort of be somewhat civil with people who are making an effort to learn? Yeah, I will. But that's my real view, to be quite honest. And even if you see me in person, I don't give a fuck if you're offended. What are you going to do? I'm still saying the truth and you're still wrong. That's the ultimate answer. That's the ultimate reality, is you're still in the wrong and you haven't figured out how it fucking works yet because you're clinging on to your bullshit like a corpse. Clinging on to your bullshit ideas like a dead corpse. And it's rotting and crumbling in your hands and between your fingers, and you're still saying, I'm going to cling on to this dust till the day I die, motherfucker. Because that's how hard-headed human beings are. And that's what makes them the trash that they are. Largely. Not everybody. There are some gems in this world. But, my friend Jay Parker, who's on the One Great Work Network and has his own show, a couple of shows actually, always makes this joke with me, just as a little anecdote, that the researcher and public speaker Maurice Cotterell, who gave an excellent presentation on Mayan and Mesoamerican calendrics and how that related to human spirituality and actually how it related to human totalitarian systems and the Dark New World Order. If you can find it, it's excellent. I believe it is on the Ark. I'm pretty certain that it is, actually. And Jay always jokes around with me that, in this presentation, Maurice said that, like the biblical number, there were only going to be 144,000 people who ultimately really did the right thing in the world and are going to, quote unquote, not have to relive this, or they're going to make it to heaven, quote unquote, however you want to look at that. They're not going to have to re-go through this bullshit experience that we're going through now. And Jay always jokes around like he's out of his fucking mind because there's not 144,000 people that are actually good people on this planet. And I couldn't agree more. That seems like an impossible number. I'd more like say if there's 144, we're making progress. Okay? Seriously. I'm not even kidding. It's certainly not 144,000. Look, I'll be really generous, right? And I'll give you, maybe there's 1,440. Okay, I'll be super generous there. Okay, but to even believe it would be 14,400 would be a stretch, let alone 144,000. Okay, it would be. I'd have to have a real serious stretch to believe there's 14,400 if we're looking at the 144 number. It's certainly not 144,000. Let's put it that way. So I know Jay will appreciate that little anecdote. So religion is just as much bullshit as atheism is. It's all nonsense. And you know what it all does? It all destroys anarchy. Buying into any of these bullshit brain imbalances destroys anarchy in the world, because it's buying into the dialectics that lead to slavery. None of those belief systems are going to get you to an understanding of natural law. And ultimately, you need a deep understanding of natural law to understand true anarchy and therefore consider yourself a true anarchist. If anybody still doesn't understand how that works, I feel fucking sorry for you. You're just dumb, son. You're just dumb. You know? And let me just step out of this for a moment, you know, and go over here. Oh, can't do that. Sorry, I'm in a different presentation. Let's try it again anyway. Here. I'm going to force the issue. There you go. If you don't understand the polarization dialectics between religionism and atheism, you're just dumb, son. You're just dumb. Sit down and have a conversation with Fred out on the folding lawn chairs out in the front of the junkyard, and Fred will fucking tell you how it really is. He'll explain it to you so that you could really understand that you're just dumb, son. You're just dumb. That's all it is. That's all it comes down to. People explained it to you enough, and if you still don't get it, you're just a dumb person. And it's sad to have to say it to somebody like that. It's very, very, very sad to just have to put it out there like that, but it's true nonetheless. It's true nonetheless. If you think any of these brain imbalance conditions is going to lead to anarchy, you are locked in a mind control pattern that was invented for you by the social engineer dark occultists of our world. Get as offended about it as you like. It's still true. I'm still correct, and you're still wrong. And to all the so-called anarchists who fly the flag of no gods, no masters, you're still wrong. Anarchists using the slogan, no gods, no masters, are immersed in the polarization dialectic of atheism and scientism versus religionism. Such dialectical programming is deliberately social engineered by the ruling class to prevent an understanding of true morality and natural law, and to therefore prevent the emergence of true freedom. And they're just too dumb to figure it out. Too dumb to figure it out, and the Satanists who run our world know this. They know that they're infinitely more intelligent than the average moron. They know that they're infinitely more driven than the average moron. They have more drive. They have more willpower. They stick together. They're all operating on the same page. And they float all these different religions out there to polarize the rest of humanity who are just dumb fucks. And get them believing in a bunch of fucking nonsense and then fighting with themselves over it. And none of them can come to a logical and clear and factual understanding of what is actually true and how the world really works and what is really going on inside them and what is really going on all around them. They're just too fucking stupid. They don't have the IQ. They don't have the intellectual acumen. So when I say not only atheists, I'm talking about scientism believers as well. Again, that's what I'm talking about when I put science in quotes on the previous slides. I am talking about people who believe in scientism, not real science. So so-called anarchists believing in scientism, this is another religion. Hence the title up top, anarchists and scientism. Anarchists in quotes and scientism. What is scientism? as being clearly distinguished from true science. Scientism is an exaggerated trust in modern scientific institutions, to the extent that the individual extending such trust believes that these institutions are the only source of verifiable truth. Again, scientific institutions as the arbiters of truth instead of the truth discovery methodology as the path that helps you to understand truth. And when you come to understand it, there is no institution that needs to say it that you would trust as being the arbiter. It is simply that which is truth itself. I don't need science to tell me that the sky refracts a blue color on a cloudless day. Okay? The reality of the situation tells me that. My eyes and observation tell me that. The same thing when it comes to natural law. It's not written down in a book. Okay? It's been described by many people throughout human history, but science doesn't have to even doesn't need to write it down or even acknowledge it for it to be real. There are many things that are real and true that science doesn't acknowledge, that scientific institutions don't acknowledge. True science would acknowledge them. Many anarchists still believe in such an institutionalized worldview of science. To a great extent, they also accept without question the completely outdated and disproven paradigm of Newtonian materialism. Or in other words, what is the main underlying mindset that drives atheism. Many within the so-called anarchist movement cannot grasp that true science is a methodology of truth discovery and not a belief system as dictated by modern worldly institutions. And many people still cannot make this understanding, this distinguishment. They cannot grasp it. Scientific institutions and science are two different things. The belief in scientific institutions as the be-all and end-all and arbiters of science is what constitutes the belief called scientism, which clouds our understanding of the truth and therefore clouds our understanding of the self and of natural law and of how freedom works. You're never going to get to an understanding of truth if scientism is your religion, and it goes hand in hand with atheism. Trust the science. The science changes. Well, which is it? Because truth doesn't change. Real science as a truth discovery methodology doesn't change. It is objective and absolute, as is truth. Truth is objective and absolute, my friends. If you haven't understood that, you need to go back to podcast number 1 and you need to get your fucking ego out of the way. Human beings see things from relative perspectives. And it's your goal to align your limited perspective with what is actually true and what is actually real and what is actually there and is natural and is inherent to creation and is not a constructural idea that exists only in the diseased and imbalanced mind. Most people still don't understand that, and they're going to go to their grave believing otherwise. Here's some of the hallmarks of scientism. Ignoring entire data sets and fudging data to fit their own deeply entrenched worldview are foundational hallmarks of government grant money funded scientism. Let me say that sentence again, because it's a mouthful and you need to really break it down and understand what I'm saying. So, one of the foundational hallmarks of scientism, which is government grant money funded science in double quotes. It's not real science. That's why I'm calling it scientism or science in double quotes. Fake ass science, in other words, right? It's all funded by government grant money. So again, those who fund it want the results that they want presented by the people who are doing the studies, and then they'll continue to fund it. So it's working backwards. They're saying, I'll fund it, but these are the results we want to see, so we can publish that, and that advances our agenda. That's not how science is done. Whether science needs funding or not, it's an investigative method into the nature of reality and how it works. And you don't start by saying, we need the conclusions that turn out like that, which is how a lot of science is done today. I worked in scientific institutions. See, part of what most modern people don't understand is how science really works in the modern day. That's why they have blind faith and trust in it, because they've never worked in a scientific institution and they don't really understand how science functions in the modern day. If they understood how ugly and fucking totally corrupt that process is, they'd have no faith in science as it is conducted today. We don't have real science, just like we don't have a real freedom movement, just like we don't have a real anarchist movement. We don't have real science and scientists. We have people accepting fucking money to present findings that their funders want presented. That's what we have in modern science. Whether you believe that's true or not, it's true. And if you don't understand that that's how it works, you're a really naive fucking little baby fucking child. And you probably also believe it because you've never had personal life experience in a scientific institution of any kind whatsoever. And all you have to go on is what other people tell you. You have no direct gnosis or real world experience of the thing. I do. I've worked in modern scientific institutions. And I have seen and heard their entire worldview and how it all works. And pretty actually significantly have seen and heard that process by, honestly, quite frankly, having access to their documents. You see, I dealt with private documents all the time. Okay? And I saw things that most people never have access to see inside a scientific institution. You think it works by that it's totally non-biased? And money doesn't create that bias, you're out of your fucking gourd, little boy, little girl. You're out of your fucking diseased, gourd little brain. You don't know how it works because you haven't seen it. You haven't been there. You haven't had the life experience to even teach you how it really works. Once again, I don't give a fuck whether you accept that or not. It's still true. I'm still correct and you're still wrong if you believe otherwise. There's a fact of the matter about it, about how it works. And I'm explaining to you the fact of the fucking matter. Let's get that clear. It's not my opinion that that's how it works. I've seen it with my own eyes every single day for years. So, scientismists will ignore entire data sets. They will fudge data to fit their own worldview. They will fudge data to fit the source of the government grant money funding that they're getting to reach the conclusions that they're told that they need to reach and publish. They'll fudge all the data sets. They'll fudge all the numbers if they have to. Because ultimately they know I put out anything that contradicts what my funders want me to discover and publish, the funding dries up and goes away. I'm out of a job, and there go my 2 fucking Lexuses in the 2-family garage next to my house. In the 2-car family garage next to my home. And what do you think the smacked jackass little left brain fucking egghead coward is going to do when given the choice between his entire lifestyle that got him his 2 Lexuses in the garage, that got him his trophy wife, that his wife would kick him to the fucking curb if he wasn't making that money, you know, that got him the house out in the fucking suburbs? What do you think that smacked jackass egghead is going to go along with? You think he's going to go along with the truth and buck the fucking system of funding that's putting the bread on his fucking table? Or you think he's going to choose the creature comforts and he's going to go with the fucking money? He's a fucking immoral piece of fucking dirt loser who's going to go with the fucking money, if you're being honest with yourself. Because that's what almost all of these people are. They're little weakling fucking egg-headed baby fucking losers. They're people who never stood up to any fucking thing, anybody, a day in their fucking life. They're cowards from the day that they were fucking born. They never grew a set of fucking balls. They don't give a fuck about anything but being comfortable because they're little fucking pieces of fucking cowardly dirt. And that's what almost every scientist is in our world today. That's what almost every doctor is. That's what almost every lawyer is. That's what almost everybody in just about any fucking profession. That's what almost every teacher is. That's certainly what everybody in government is. All you guys give a fuck about is the fucking money. Because you're trash. You're fucking garbage. Nobody ever sat you down. Your fucking mother never smacked your fucking mouth and said, you're a fucking piece of immoral fucking garbage. Because she was just a fucking big of a piece of immoral fucking garbage and never taught you right from wrong, you dirty fucking piece of trash. Nobody hears that from anybody. That's the problem. We're content to just let people continue to think like that and never tell them that they're fucking dirt. That's what makes somebody a piece of fucking dirt. Going along with something that is clearly not true and clearly immoral and clearly wrong just to make fucking money. That is what makes you a bad person and makes you a piece of immoral fucking trash. And you're not going to hear it any fucking nicer from me. I'm going to say the fucking truth the way it actually is. Again, I'm still correct and you're still wrong about it. And that's the problem with the world, is that most people aren't saying it as correctly as I am, the way that it really actually is. Because they're little shit baby, shit in a fucking diaper, baby fucking cowards. And I'm not. I'm a fucking grown-ass man who's not a fucking afraid. I'm not going to be punked, and you're not going to tell me I'm wrong, because I'm not. I've studied these dynamics so completely and totally that it would break your mind if you even saw the amount of data I've been through. And I have the correct understanding because I've taken in the totality of the knowledge obsessively and made it my life and sacrificed all other areas of my life to get that knowledge and to get the understanding of it correct inside my own being. Continuing with this slide. The emerging modern sciences of epigenetics and holistic biology, which if people aren't familiar with, they should read and study and become intimately familiar with them because they explain so much of how consciousness and the mind and the psyche ties into the reality that we experience. I recommend the works of Bruce Lipton and one of his compatriots, I'm trying to think of his name, Joe Dispenza. Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza would be good to look into these fields. Epigenetics and holistic biology, or some people simply call holistic biology new biology. These fields of science are just beginning to turn the tide against such a former scientismic and atheistic worldview by correctly incorporating consciousness and metaphysical understanding into their research methodologies. And again, it's too big of a field that would be a whole presentation in and of itself, epigenetics and new biology. Maybe I could do that as one of the shows this season or maybe next season on What on Earth is Happening, because it's a fascinating field of study. And many people that you talk to have no framework and no understanding because, again, these are emerging sciences. They are coming out of the period where materialism, especially Newtonian materialism and even biological materialism, are the only governing dynamics that are looked at in their fields of inquiry. Genetics and biology. And now they're understanding that belief systems play a role. What information has been given to a person or withheld from a person plays a role in understanding how these fields of science and, human workings actually work in reality. Again, I talk about epigenetics all the time. That's what social engineering largely is. It's a form of epigenetics. It's changing what we see experienced in the gene pool of humanity by changing the way people think and therefore changing the behaviors that they choose to conduct or not conduct. I did a whole presentation on what I called epi-eugenics, which really I've said in the past and in the present should have really been titled epidysgenics. Eugenics means creating good genes and creating better expressions of humanity. Dysgenics means you're dumbing people down. You're giving them false information. You're giving them misinformation. You're making them not come to the correct conclusions and thinking and therefore behaviors. And then you're distorting and dumbing down the gene pool and, just making it worse and worse. That's dysgenics, not eugenics. My presentation, Unholy Feminine, the Unholy Feminine, the subtitle was The Satanic Neo-Feminist. Let me just look it up. I can't even remember. It was called The Satanic Epi-Eugenics Agenda. It was... neo-feminism and the Satanic Epi-Eugenics Agenda. That's it. So, the Unholy Feminine, Neo-Feminism, and the Satanic Epi-Eugenics Agenda. It's like a 6-hour presentation where I talk about extensively social engineering and epigenetics used to basically advance the social engineering and mind control of women in our society. And I talk a lot about the fields that have to be understood and studied and some of the researchers in those fields. So you could review that presentation if you want, because it talks about that a lot. But anyway, this is what modern scientism does. This is how modern science is conducted. It's not true science. It's science in name only. It's scientism. It's a religion. It's a religion which holds people back from the real thing. And money is largely used to do that. And unfortunately, most people in the world can be swayed and influenced by money to do the wrong thing. And until that changes, until we become a species that no matter how much comfort is offered and no matter how much money is offered, we will choose to do the right thing regardless of how much discomfort doing the right thing creates in our lives, we're going to be enslaved. Let me just say that one more time. Humanity will be enslaved until the time that we become a species that stops taking money to do the wrong things, where we will refuse to accept money no matter how large of a sum we are offered to do that which is morally wrong, or to not speak what is true and right and good and take up the battle on the side of the good, if it means that even in the short term or the long term, we're going to experience discomfort. So we won't do those things. We'll continue to accept comfort instead of doing what we know to be right. Expect slavery forever until humanity changes into what I just described, the species that will accept discomfort to do the right thing and will not take money to do the wrong thing. Period. Until humanity changes into a species like that, it will be enslaved forever. Get that understanding clear in your mind, because that's what humanity needs to be taught if it wants freedom. You can't have freedom and still refuse to do that which is right, because doing it will create discomfort in your life. And not doing it will create comfort. That's what my whole presentation called Fear of Sacrifice in the Freedom Movement is all about. Let's look at the next religion in the mindset of the fake-ass anarchist. Secularism in general. Again, it fits hand in hand with atheism and scientism, but secularism is being of this world. It's materialism and the absence of spirituality. So again, you could look at it as the underlying ideology that even underlies atheism. This would be the foundation for atheism, is pure materialism. Again, what informs the atheist worldview is that notion that the matter is prime, and that's all that there is, and that there is no spirit. So they have no real spirituality to them. They have no aspect of spirituality to their essence, to their being. And they believe in that Newtonian paradigm of pure materialism, the Newtonianism materialist paradigm, which is scientifically disproven and has been for probably the last 100 years. Secularism means being of this world. And being of this world is not the answer. Looking to the right first at the symbol of the reverse of the $1 bill of the Great Seal of the United States, the reverse side, which says right on it, the New World Order. We can look at the word secular, right? So the word secular is derived from the Latin noun seculum, meaning world or universe. So it's everything having to do with this world, the world of physicality and matter. And again, the word seclorum does not come from the word meaning of the ages. It is a truncation of seculum, meaning world. Literally, Novus Ordo Seclorum means new order of the world. Genitive case, seculorum. Novus meaning new and ordo meaning order. Almost all forms of anarchists place huge de-emphasis on philosophy and spirituality. Not all of them, but almost all forms of fake anarchists, I really should say there. Okay? True anarchists obviously place a high degree of emphasis on philosophy and spirituality, but almost all forms of the fake forms of anarchists do not. They place a huge de-emphasis on philosophy and spirituality and place a strong emphasis on the analysis of worldly institutions and events. They are trying to track only the political and financial machinations of the ruling class. You know, they're not looking at the underlying philosophical understanding. They're not looking at morality. They're not looking at social engineering, mind control, the occult, the reasons that people are falling into the bad decision making because of the bad reasoning that they have fallen into, because of the bad information that they are given or lack thereof. These fake anarchists erroneously believe, as an overarching aspect of their secular worldview, that political and economic solutions to the human condition of slavery even exist. There are no political solutions to slavery. There are no economic solutions to slavery. Yes, you can do, you can't really even do political things that even help with it. Economic things, there are ways of helping with people's conditions that they are living in, but they're still enslaved as long as the belief in authority exists. You cannot solve slavery with political or economic solutions. You can only solve the human condition of slavery with philosophy, with principles, with morality. It cannot be done any other way, ultimately, long term. These fake anarchists continuously fail to recognize and acknowledge that the only true solution to the human condition of slavery is a spiritual one. It is a spiritual solution that we need to put forward. And that means understanding objective morality, understanding truth, understanding natural law, understanding the law of freedom. Instead, these fake anarchists are locked into a materialistic worldview. I have a spelling error there. Let me make sure that's not repeated. Yep. I'll fix that on the site as well. But this is their whole worldview. Their worldview is, we just got to replace fiat money with crypto. You know? Political and financial machinations. Political and financial deceptions and distortions and, plans and schemes. That's the only thing that's driving everything. It has nothing to do with occultism. It has nothing to do with social engineering and people actually occultically, through their deep and ancient occult knowledge of their family blood, from their coming down to them through the generations, through their family bloodlines, teaching them how the human psyche works, how it can be manipulated, how they can socially engineer the masses. No, it's not a priest class doing that. It's just some bankers typing in numbers onto a computer screen to create debt. Oh yeah, they use that as one of their methods, but don't think that that is the ultimate of who they are. That's one of their means to an end. That's all. People still don't want to understand that it's an occult priest class that is the actual ruling class at the highest levels. And they don't want to understand that it's a religion. It's a series of interconnected worldviews and ideologies that create the religion that they want the masses to believe in and espouse. And that's what is the underlying religion of all of these fake forms of anarchy. It's Satanism. In so many words, in the forms that they give it to people. When it all comes together, you can look at all of these ideologies, all of these independent religions in and of themselves as being cornerstones or tenets or overarching aspects of the one religion that the social engineer occult priest class wants to give to people that they know will never make true anarchy manifest and will keep human beings in the condition of slavery forever. And that is giving them Satanism at a smaller level than they themselves, as the occult priest class social engineers, understand Satanism. They understand it at a far higher level. This is what they give to the brainwashed masses to keep them in their ignorance. Keep them out there flying their black flags, protesting and begging from the political masters, breaking property, destroying property, looking like an asshole, thinking that, just dressing in black or dressing like a punk or dressing like a fucking moron is going to get you freedom, Believing in materialism, believing in atheism, believing in scientism as your religion, having no true spirituality, believing that there's no such thing as truth or that it's all relative. It's all just pieces of a religion. And the main thing every one of these things leads to, it leads to the big one. That's the heart or the hub. You could look at these as the points on the pentagram of Satanism. Right? And yes, it's all egotism, right? But at the very, very core heart of all of it, the main thing that they want people buying into is moral relativism. That's what they want over everything else. They want this to be the absolutely unbreakable shield and shell of the religion that they've gotten other people to buy into. They need people to be morally relativistic to continue to believe in authority, because authority is absolutely morally illegitimate on its face, as we've talked about ad infinitum, ad pucitum, okay, on this show. You can never have the state where any form of authority is morally legitimate, because every claim of authority is the claim on the body and the fruits of the labor of another being, where if they don't agree to have that, their body controlled like that, or the fruits of their labor confiscated like that, then violence will be conducted upon them. That is coercion, that is duress, and ultimately that is a form of the violation of other people's rights. That is what makes all forms of authority and all forms of the claim of authority, which all government is based upon, morally illegitimate. It is an immoral claim that can never be turned into something that is actually moral or good. And if we don't understand that that's immoral, because we believe that everything's relative when it comes to morality, and we could just arbitrarily decide that. If people have the right to put something in their body in one country and they don't have the right to put the same substances in their body in another country, how could you look at that as morally consistent? If you can play certain forms of music here in the United States and you go to a Middle Eastern country and they'll jail you for even playing a certain form of music, how could that be morally consistent? It can't. It's morally relativistic. If I cannot place a firearm beneath my shirt and walk outside without a permit, but crossing an imaginary state border, I can do that very same act and it not be considered a crime, and I will not be caged for it. Well, who's correct and who's wrong? Is the Middle East correct for jailing people who play certain musical forms? Was it correct to jail people for distilling alcohol during Prohibition? Is it correct for people to go to jail if they put a firearm under their shirt now in Pennsylvania, whereas you can do it in Vermont? I mean, you have to think about the total relativism of any form of man's law. And then you have to think who actually is correct, or are any of them correct? Are they all wrong? Is one correct and all the rest are incorrect? And in many instances, either they're all wrong or there is certain states that get it right, certain areas that get it right, and everybody else has it wrong. People can play music of their choosing and not be caged for it. You can arm yourself with whatever arms you want and carry them. That's a human right. You can put what you want into your own body because you own your body. It's your property. That doesn't mean you may not be responsible with your actions. That's a separate behavior. Imbibing something or placing it into your body is a separate behavior as doing harm to somebody, initiating harm to another being while you're on the influence of a substance. Two separate behaviors. One is a right, one is not. The imbibing is a right. The initiation of harm to others is not a right. See, this is what I'm saying is people do not have this philosophically. They do not have it in their values, in their principles. Correct. That's why I've been emphasizing so much. It matters whether you're correct or not. Being correct is of primary importance. If you are incorrect, your behavior is going to be informed by the incorrect conclusion that you have come to, and then you're going to be making immoral decisions and behaviors. You're going to be making decisions and conducting behaviors that are immoral because your reasoning process about what you have or don't have the right to do is incorrect about your rights. That's why I'm blatantly telling people, I don't think I'm correct. I'm definitively, actually correct, objectively in nature. My conclusion is in harmony with what is true. It's not a belief anymore. It becomes an understanding of the factual, actual, objective correctness of the matter when it comes to rights, when it comes to principles, when it comes to morality. That's why it's so important to get it right. If we are incorrect about what we conclude regarding the morality of a behavior, that is what leads the entire society on the path to totalitarian slavery. And that's where we're at. All the beliefs in egotism, absence of spirituality, atheism, scientism, postmodernism, solipsism leads to morally relativistic behavior, ultimately. And all of these aspects comprise what is called modern Satanism. This is what the modern satanic religion encompasses. So let's look at what moral relativism is and really specifically define it. Because this is the one that almost every one of those areas of fake anarchy so-called, entails. This is the bait, this is the hook that they got the fish to take the bait on. Okay? And almost all of them share it. I call moral relativism the destroyer of anarchy. It is the complete destroyer of true anarchy. Moral relativism is the ideology or religion that objective morality does not exist inherently to nature, and that right and wrong are subjective constructs which human beings may invent and arbitrate according to time, location, circumstance, or preference. In truth and reality, morality is objective. Rights can never become wrongs, and wrongs can never become rights at any place or time, regardless of how many people believe or wish for it to be so. This is the whole idea in the biblical allegory of Eden. Do not eat of the fruit of the tree of good and evil. And what the word eat actually means is do not take into oneself the knowledge or the arbitration of the difference between right and wrong, of good and evil. Meaning humanity is not the arbiter of what is right and wrong. Humanity must learn the actual point of fact, objective reality of what behaviors are rights because they do not initiate harm to others, and which behaviors are wrongdoings because they do initiate harm to other beings. We are not here to arbitrate that. We are here to discover the truth about it and learn it and then put it into practice and align our behaviors to it. Moral relativism prevents that from happening because it says there's no such thing as an objective standard of right and wrong. That doesn't exist inherently in nature. That's just a constructural idea that just exists in the human mind. So we can arbitrate that. We can say things are right in one place and wrong in another place. We can say things are right at one time and wrong at another time. And we can become those who have taken in that fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. We have taken it into ourselves and we have become the arbiters of that truth. That's what it means allegorically, biblically, in the biblical allegory of Eden, of Adam and Eve, of God commanding them, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's mistranslations and direct misdirection so that people don't understand the moral of the story, quite literally. What the creator of the universe is saying to humanity is, I've made the moral law of what is right and wrong. It's not up to you to make that law. It's up to you to obey that law. It's up to you to bring your behavior into harmony with those laws so that you create a true positive outcome for yourselves instead of enslaving yourselves like you're fucking doing. Dumbasses. I'm paraphrasing for God there, but essentially that is what God is saying. You know? It's saying, I gave you the ability with this wonderful brain that I've given you to come to the correct conclusions of these things, and you're believing in the fucking idiots with the fucking, in the priest class, telling you that it's all relative and there's actually no such thing as right and wrong. Dumbass. You know? What the Creator is saying to humanity in this biblical allegory is, you're not the arbitrators of right and wrong. You are here to discover what right and wrong are and then choose right over wrong. It's not that complicated, folks. Stop making it as complicated as it is, because people that make it that complicated sound like fucking dumbasses that they are. And, you know, like I said, it's a shame because this stuff isn't complicated. It's not that hard to figure out, right? I've been saying the same fucking thing for 15 years and still most people don't understand what I'm saying and don't agree. That's why most people in the whole political paradigm and in activist groups and freedom-oriented groups, even in anarchist groups, I feel sorry that their brains are that slow. It's like you really have to say to some of them, again, I'm not speaking for all of them, because there's some who are very good and do get it. But some of them, you want to sit down and go, did your mother drop you on your head like repeatedly on like a hard concrete or marble surface when you were a fucking baby? Like over and over and over again? Like was she just playing basketball with your fucking skull as a child, as a baby? Because there's something fucking really broken and retarded inside of you. You know? And it's like, that's how nasty you want to be to some people, that you're like, how did you possibly end up this fucking stupid? You know, what kind of a number did your fucking parents and society do on you? Because they did the same kind of fucking number on me, to be honest, right? I got the same bad upbringing. I got the same bad treatment by society as anybody else. As a matter of fact, you could, make the argument I'm equally or more traumatized by the lies that I was told and believed in, because I was like, I'm going to staunchly believe in this because I think these people are good people. And then the tragedy of realizing I was lied to by dumb people who didn't even understand what was going on and didn't care really affected me very badly. And that's what drove me into Satanism. But then for me to reach the ability to really reason through this with all the information and books that exist and videos that exist and teachers that exist, I came out of it relatively quickly compared to most people who are still clinging on to it. Like I said, you're clinging on to the fucking dust that a dead corpse has degenerated into, and you're trying to gather up that dust with both hands and put it in a container, and you're going to fucking hug it for the rest of your fucking imbecilic, idiotic, loser lives, when it doesn't serve you. The idea of moral relativism, all it's doing is creating a world of fucking savagery, slavery, and fucking totalitarianism. And then you're saying you're the opposite of that. And still people within this very movement insist that morality is not real because they throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're so opposed to religion. Believe me, this was me when I was younger. Except I went through it and realized the thing you're running headlong into the arms of because you're running away from religion, and it's sitting there with open arms ready to greet you, running into it a billion miles a fucking hour, is Satanism. And it's also totalitarianism. It's also a fucking lie. You got to stop running in opposite directions from religion and go up. Just like in the model that I explained about the true political spectrum, it's on the vertical axis. When you go up in consciousness, then you're getting to the correct place. You don't want to be in either form of imbalance, and you want to go straight up. That's moral understanding. That's moral philosophy, meaning uprightness. In Freemasonry, they would say, employ the plumb to make sure that you're on up and down vertically straight, or on the level, That's making sure you're not in a state of imbalance. And then you got to go straight up. That's how consciousness works. That up and down direction. More of it creates better, is better. Less of it takes you into totalitarianism. You can't have moral relativism and have freedom. It's impossible. Any society of human beings that believes that there is no natural, objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior, and believe that human beings may arbitrarily create or decide what right and wrong are for themselves, is a society that can never create true freedom by bringing their behavior into alignment with natural law. They've created an impossibility. It's a conundrum. It's a paradox. It's a catch-22. If you don't accept that objective morality exists, you can't bring your behavior into objective alignment with objective morality, because you don't even believe there's a truth to the matter. So how could you come to the truth and align your behavior to the truth of it if you think it's all relative? So the law of freedom states that as morality increases, as moral choice collectively in the aggregate of humanity increases, humanity becomes more free. And as the aggregate moral decision-making and behavioral choices of humanity become more out of alignment with natural law and become more immoral, they become more enslaved. Well, if you don't know the truth of the matter of what actions are right and which actions are wrong, how could you ever align your behavior to the right? To the truth of what is moral. So you can't bring them into alignment with natural law, and therefore you can never truly create a stable state of true freedom. Since the governing dynamics of human freedom are predicated upon the aggregate morality of a society, it is a total and permanent impossibility for true freedom or anarchy to ever exist in a society that embraces the very concept of moral relativism. This has to be understood deeply. It has to be 100% fully grasped and integrated into someone's value system and their system of principles. If you don't understand this, you cannot understand anarchy. You cannot understand freedom. This is paramount to the understanding of what freedom is. The next set of religious ideologies, false religions that many of the left-wing form of anarchists believe in, like a religion, clinging onto a dead corpse of what I would call antichrists in our society, who Marx was one of the biggest. People like Gates are living antichrists. Schwab is a living antichrist. Bush Sr. was one, and there are innumerable others. LaVey to a lesser extent, although, he did a lot of damage. Certainly, Michael Aquino of the Temple of Set. And you can go on and on and on, obviously. Himmler, Hitler, etc. But Marx was one of the biggest because of how deeply entrenched his bullshit nonsense ideology was and what he actually got people to believe. The garbage he got people to believe. The other thing is him pushing his, idea about how society should be structured, leading to modern forms of socialism and ultimately communism in the past and in the modern day. He's been responsible indirectly through the words attributed to him and Engels as probably being responsible for more deaths than any other human being that has ever lived. And he didn't even write the words himself, they're just attributed to him. When you really look at who pressed the authorship of the Communist Manifesto, if you are well researched in the topic and you're not making excuses and you're not believing what you want to believe, you'll realize that Karl Marx and Frederick Engels were influenced to write the Communist Manifesto, but were not the only authors or actual sole authors of it. They may have obviously contributed and or edited it, but you absolutely must understand the deep connection to the Communist League and the director of the Communist League at the time, Karl Schapper. Then you look into Schapper's background, who most people never heard of, and you'll come to Satanism, dark Luciferianism, the occult in general. You'll come to his intimate friendship, which was obviously more than just a friendship, with Giuseppe Mazzini, Italian communist. You'll come to his connection with Mazzini, who was the head of the Bavarian Illuminati, the second Grand Master of the Bavarian Illuminati behind Adam Weishaupt. And most people will never look at these occult connections, let alone understand them. Mazzini being the head of the occult order, the political and occult order, Young Italy. He groomed people up into political extremism and occultism. And Schapper, who did the same with Young Germany. So there's no mistake whatsoever that Marx and Engels were protégés of occultists, and quite possibly occultists themselves. Although I'm not going to necessarily claim that, but I will definitely claim that Schapper was an occultist and Mazzini unquestioningly an occultist. And he influenced socialism and communism in a huge way because he saw these as ways to take down existing entrenched regimes if the social engineers that were part of the Bavarian so-called Illuminati were going to take the entire world and take it out of the hands of existing entrenched systems. So let's look at what the actual definition of socialism and Marxism really is. You see Marx here giving the secret symbolic gesture called the hidden hand. He's basically telling you, I'm in with the insiders, with the hand that moves the world. It's hidden. You don't see it. It's there. It moves everything. It influences everything that it touches, but you can't see it because you're the unwashed fucking idiot masses. And, that's what occultists throughout time have put their hand in their jacket like that to say, I'm on the inside. I'm in the inner priest class, or at least I'm doing the bidding of the inner priest class. You don't even know what they do, how they think, who they are, anything about them, and you're a fucking puppet of them. And this is what Marx here is in this portrait is just basically saying out in the open to people is you're a dumb sack of fucking sorry shit, dumb fucks who believe in my work. I'm one of the people who is carrying out the bidding of your masters, the fucking cull your dumb asses. And you believe my bullshit that Schapper told me to write. You fucking imbecile. That's what he's saying here. That's how he's looking at you. Take a look at his eyes. That's exactly how he thinks about you, you dumb fuck. So here's what socialism actually is. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, socialism is government ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. And again, these aren't my words or rewording of the definition. This is actually from a dictionary. We define words for a reason because it's actually what they really mean instead of what we think they mean or what we want them to fucking mean. That's why there's dictionaries. That's why there's meanings of words. That's what it means to define. You're making it infinite. It doesn't mean that there's an infinite variety of meanings. It means you're de-infinitizing the meaning. You're making it one. You're making it mean one thing to give clear understanding of what the word means. So that's what dictionaries are supposed to do. Not all of them are great. This here, at least in this entry, speaks the truth. Socialism is the government ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. A system of society or group living in which there is no private property. A system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. It doesn't say by the people, it says by the state. Socialists want you to believe it's by the people. It isn't by the people. It's government ownership. It's owned by the state. Marx himself would tell you this. He wouldn't say it's owned by the people. He told people the massive bullshit lie. Like Hitler and Himmler and Goebbels and other Nazis said, the lie has to be made large, was their general wording. The lie must be very large. It must be big because people don't care about small lies. When you make a lie ultra gigantic, more people are willing to believe it because it inherently contradicts and goes against everything that they formerly believed. And then they go into this mindset of, oh, could that be true because it contradicts everything that I ever believed? Like, make the lie real big, like something like this. There's no such thing as truth, right? That's the ultimate lie. Because intuitively, people go, it's true that this table is here. It's true that this computer is sitting on this table. It's true that there's lemonade in this glass. It's true that there's a set of eyeglasses right here. I see it with my own eyes. I touch it. I feel it. I could drink this. I could tap out some commands on the computer. It's real. That's the truth. But then they tell them the big lie of solipsism. There's no such thing as truth. It's all relative. It's all your perspective. That could all be the delusion. Only perception exists in your mind, being projected. Like you're going to actually believe. Don't trust your lying eyes. Nothing is true. No common sense. So people are more apt to believe that because it's so monstrous, right? So the lie Marx told people is socialism isn't the ownership of goods and the distribution of those goods and services by the state. It's the ownership by the people. And even if we entrust it to the hands of the state, which is going to become almost practically all powerful in its godlike power because it has all the goods and the means of distributing them and all the production methods and the means of distributing those to the people who will actually do the work to create these goods, The state's going to eventually just dissolve itself because it's so beneficent that all it wants to do is get in there, seize the means of production, seize the means of distribution, beneficently get all of those goods into the hands of the people that need it, and then it's going to say, look at the good I have done. My work is done here. And relinquish all of its power to the people. And then they're just going to live in a worker's paradise where then they have the means of production and distribution and they live happily ever fucking after. And I have a nice bridge in good shape, well painted, in Brooklyn. Okay? I'm going to offer it at a really great price. All you got to do is get in touch with me. Hit me up on Discord or by email. And I have got a deal on that fucking bridge for you. And you're going to love it. And then you could charge whatever tolls you want. And you'll live happily ever after. And I'll sell it to you at a premium price, my friends. Just get in touch. Could you believe anybody is this dumb of a rat fuck imbecile to believe this Antichrist loser? Who was just a complete loser in life. Didn't want to work, didn't want to do anything, had no real aspirations, joined a fucking club that he thought was going to make him an insider, run by occultists, the Communist League. Absolute occultists ran it. I'm going to prove that in my presentation, The Dark Occult Origins of Nazism and Communism. And it's not even that difficult to prove. It's a very, very simple set of connections between people and organizations and their stated goals that they were very open about societally. And what do you think? They formed these organizations not to carry out their very stated life goals of taking over society, destroying existing institutions so they would become the ones who were the new heads of institutions worldwide and could direct society as the social engineers that they were and the ways that they wanted society to be directed. Very out in the open and honest about what they wanted and how they were going to go about doing it. The problem is they know people are so fucking dumb they won't even read their fucking writings of what they claimed to be that they were doing and were going to continue to do. And they know people are just so naive and stupid that they won't even accept it or believe it. And that they would just go and live their selfish loser lives, not pay attention to what was going on societally, not pay attention to what these people were all coming together to conspire toward. And they would just do it in secret, the hidden hand directing the cattle the way they want to direct them. Looking down at them like the fucking loser cattle that they are. And again, like I said, I'm just tired of being nice about it to people. People are just fucking dumb. They're just dumb. They don't know what's going on. They're ill-read. They never read the right books. They never read enough of the right books. They never put all the pieces of the picture together. And that's what they would have you believe. We're going to take over all the resources of the world, everywhere, across the whole planet. We're going to gain that total omnipotent power through that, where we have everybody's life in their hands, because if we don't give it to them, they can't eat. And then suddenly we're just going to say, wow, what a great job we've done distributing all of that very beneficently to people. All of those resources that they need for life. We've distributed and our work is done. Now let's dissolve the state. And jackasses believe that's how it's going to work and give their whole minds over to this sick, twisted fucking religious cult called socialism. You are abject fucking losers and naive little fucking baby punk ass bitch children is what you are. To believe that, you got to be one of the most naive fucking imbeciles on this planet. If you think that's how reality works and that's what people will do. These are some of the people in the next breath will tell you how bad people are and why they don't like them. That's why they ultimately get involved, because they want the extermination of people. You see? I know people are really bad. I don't agree with the methods. How about we try educating them toward the true moral truth, and give that a try. To my knowledge, that hasn't really been done. Religion hasn't done it. The fake forms of anarchy hasn't done it. Socialism certainly hasn't done it. Fascism certainly hasn't done it. Communism certainly hasn't done it. How about we make that effort as a people, in earnest, before we say, no matter what information is given to people from the time they're born, they'll still be bad. You don't know that. As a matter of fact, you're wrong about that, because you have an incorrect perception of human nature. Human nature is the programmable state. If you fix the programmable state by giving it the correct information, then the computer operates correctly. And folks, no, it's not reductionist. It isn't reductionist. Almost everybody on the planet behaves through the information that they received about what they think is correct about the way they should behave. Almost everyone. They have incorrect information, so when garbage goes in, garbage comes out through behavior. You put garbage in through info, you get garbage out through behavior. You put correct information in, you get correct output through behavior. It's like a computer. I didn't say human beings are computers. I said we operate in a programmable state similar to how a computer is programmed. We are a much more advanced biological computer, and we are ultimately consciousness and spirit having the experience in the human biological computer and programmable state. But we can take charge of that programming. It doesn't have to be directed externally by others. If we just put the correct information out into the world, make it accessible for people, make it easy to access, teach it to people, speak it to people, you'd see a tremendous difference. But because there's so few people doing that, the world stays in the fucking complete path of shit and slavery the way that it's been going for millennia. And here's one of the other biggest reasons, and it's one of the other biggest things that you find in the area of fake-ass anarchists. Total ignorance of the occult. Notice I spelled it with hyphenation and using the full word ignore. Total ignorance of the entire world of occultism. They know nothing about it. They poo-poo it. They insist it doesn't matter. Or they even say it doesn't exist. They don't want to know about it. They want to remain in willful ignorance of it. And here's the fucking imbecilic look that you get on their faces, that they get on their faces, rolling their eyes, crossing their arms, blanking the fuck out, changing the topic of discussion. Oh, this again? Somebody's going to tell me about the Illuminati. You're a fucking dumbass jackass that doesn't have any personal fucking gnosis or experience of what I'm talking about. You don't know what the real occult is. The word Illuminati is a bullshit fucking word to use to describe them because it means the illuminated ones. I'm the Illuminati. I'm one of the illuminated. These fucking jackasses who have taken this knowledge, perverted it, and used it as a weapon against the body of humanity are not illuminated at all. Call them the Shitanami or whatever the fuck you want to call them, but don't call them the illuminated ones. And you know what? That's a secondary word to what these fucking psychopaths actually called themselves when they were beginning their cult in the modern day in earnest. They called themselves the Perfectibilis, which means the perfect ones. Imagine this. We're not only the enlightened ones, the Illuminati, we're the Perfectibilis in Latin, which means the perfect ones. Those who have no flaws. We are perfect in every way. That is what the original name of the Bavarian Illuminati society, occult society was. The Perfectibilis, which meant the perfect ones, the perfected ones. Imagine the hubris, imagine the ego on these motherfucking Satanists, that they considered themselves perfected, not just enlightened or illuminated, not just knowledgeable, but perfect. They perfected smearing up the bottom of the fucking toilet. That's what they perfected. Yeah, that's what they perfected. You perfected the slime at the bottom of the fucking garbage can, loser. And then the even bigger losers are the people who insist these people had no influence on our society. No, they only created communism. They only created socialism. The things that have led to the death of more people than any other fucking thing in the entire world. No, they have no, hold on a second. Sorry to do this to you, Iron Man, but, you know, you're the poster child just because of the eye roll meme, okay? I get it. But, it is what these people look like when you try to tell them about the occult world. When they have no experience. You say in the next breath, have you ever been involved personally in occult orders and or fraternal orders or secret societies? No, of course not. Well, then what the fuck do you know about it? Ass? What do you know about it? You've never been involved. What the fuck could you possibly know about how it works, jackass? It doesn't exist because you say it doesn't? Because you have no knowledge of it, then you don't want to fucking hear anything about how it really works? Or just because you think other people have given you bad information? And believe me, I realize that there's a lot of disinformation about the occult and secret societies. I get it. But people who want to turn off, go glassy-eyed, roll their fucking eyes, better not do that toward me, because you don't know who the fuck you're talking to, you dumb fucking dunce. I've been involved at a direct fucking level. I've been inside those orders myself with direct personal experience. So you're not going to tell me what the fuck I know or roll your fucking eyes at what I lived. What I lived in and through. But here's what they sound like. Yeah, occultism has nothing to do with the world. This is all fake. It's all just a little, scheme to get people to believe that these people are knowledgeable and powerful. And it's not. It has nothing to do with it. If I don't believe in it, it doesn't affect me. These people have no bearing and no influence on the world. They have no power. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. Smacked fucking asses. Complete smacked asses, puking their nonsense all over everybody else. You ain't gonna puke it on me, because you're not punking. I'm not some punk bitch like you are to be fucking punked and bitched the fuck out. I know what I'm talking about, and I know who I was involved with. You're the one who doesn't. Jackass. So, keep the eye roll look to yourself. I know, on the other hand, what occultism really is. I know how they're using it as a mechanism of power and influence and control in the world. I know who those people are. I know exactly their methods. I'm telling you their methods, and you're too fucking dumb to understand. And again, I'm not talking to the people in my viewing audience or listening audience that already do understand. I'm talking about the ones who insist that I'm not correct, and they are. I'm talking about the people who insist that their worldview is correct and what I'm saying is somehow incorrect. And no, it is not. It is you who are incorrect about the influence of the world of occultism. You don't know how it works. You aren't involved. You aren't there. You don't understand it. I do. Let's get that clear and straight. And again, once again, I've explained it nicely enough to all the fucking people in the back who are a little slow on the fucking uptake because they're fucking retarded. I'm not going to be nice about it anymore, and I'll be equally less nice about it in person. You think I'm not being nice about it behind a computer? You don't want to fucking start the argument with me that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the world of the occult or its actual influence in this world in person to me. Because you're basically telling me I didn't live the life that I lived. And that my experiences don't matter. And or just call me a direct fucking liar to my face when I'm not. And as a man, I ain't sitting there and listening to some dumb chump fucking child's fucking puke about what I know to be true. You're not going to punk this one like that because I'm not somebody to be fucking punked. You're the one who's fucking punked. Let's get it clear and straight. And it's because you don't know what the word occult even means, let alone how its influence is operating in the world all around you. It's hidden science. It's they want to know how things really work and have the real science in hand, and they want to keep it hidden from your dumb fucking ass. That's what the world of the occult is. The word occult is derived from the Latin adjective occultus, meaning hidden. Occultism is the study of the hidden laws of nature, specifically those laws which are at work in the invisible realm, the mental realm, the spiritual domain. far more than those that are at work in the visible or physical domain. Therefore, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider worldview than that which is ordinarily taken by the everyday person. Yeah, it's called understanding how things really work and keeping those workings and the understanding of those workings from the average dolt, from the average brain-dead, 9-to-5, ham and egger imbecile. Occultists then may be defined as those who study all the laws of nature, both those that are readily seen, like the physical laws of nature, and those which are much more difficult to see with the physical eyes or measuring instruments alone, meaning the behavioral sciences, the behavioral laws of reality. What is the knowledge that occultism hides? Occultism is a body of science which is not widely known to the general population, consisting of hidden knowledge about the workings of the human psyche and the laws of nature, both seen or physical laws and unseen or spiritual laws. This is broken down in the system of the tarot with the major arcana and the minor arcana. The minor arcana is knowledge of the self, the microcosmic or inner world. So the whole major arcana actually has in it knowledge of how the soul or self operates and the wider world. But the minor arcana is largely about knowledge of the self. The other, what would it be, 56 out of the 78 cards, or yeah, I think it's, or 57, 56, I think, and then you have 22, 56 and 22 for a total of 78 cards. So 56 minor arcana cards are teaching the knowledge of the inner world, the knowledge of the self, knowledge of the human psyche and how it operates. But also you have the first 11 cards of the major arcana that get into that knowledge as well, from a higher perspective, how it works through free will with the laws of nature, which are described in the second half of the major arcana, which is considered the macrocosmic laws, the macrocosmic world, the knowledge of natural law or universal moral law and how that works. And in addition to that, knowledge of the physical sciences, the universe itself, the laws of matter, etc. So if you place the first 11 cards of the major arcana of the tarot, we did this last season on the show, in the arrangement of the tree of life with the Fool at the position of Da'at, which is supposedly the base of the tree, or where the tree of life grows from. You then have all the aspects of the monad or soul, the individuated unit of consciousness, and it builds the characteristics and qualities from ignorance all the way up to self-mastery. Conversely, if you lay the second 11 cards of the major arcana from 11 through 21 on the tree of life pattern, you'll have the world at the position of Da'at, which again is the root or stem of the tree, the base of the tree. So you have the soul at the base of the first microcosmic tree, and the world reflecting the soul at the base of the second tree, or the macrocosmic tree. And these are all the world forces at work, ranging from truth, acceptance of truth, ignorance of truth, to change, to freedom versus slavery, ultimately serving the force of ego and the rejection of truth, to serving the force of truth and natural law and the acceptance of truth and bringing it into oneself and then putting it out there for others as well, which is what real wisdom is. And it's a total reflection of the tree that you build on the other side for the self. It's a good meditative and a good exercise in understanding the tarot in general is to lay the cards out in the microcosmic and macrocosmic tree of life, the 22 cards of the major arcana. And there, of course, at the top of the macrocosmic tree of life, you're going to have the natural law or justice card, because that is the force that is ultimately ruling creation, the laws of consequence. So we have free will on one side, and we have the determined laws of nature and consequence on the other. And it's about how the self develops the soul in relation to the world of law. And that's what occultism is largely trying to keep concealed from people. It doesn't want you exploring the psyche and how it works, how it can be manipulated, how if it's knowledgeable enough, it can't be manipulated, how the world actually works, how natural law functions. They don't want you understanding any of those things. They don't want you even to understand the regular physical science when it comes to biology and things like that, and nutrition, and even electricity and magnetism. They don't want you understanding any of those things. They want to put a million different psyops and roadblocks in the way so that you remain an ignorant fool, so that you never progress to that place of self-mastery and the understanding of natural law. That's all the occult is there for. Positive schools of occultism have attempted to take that out of hiding and teach it to people to varying degrees, unsuccessfully. They've never gone far enough at de-occulting this knowledge. That's why I say the Hermeticists were wrong. This isn't pearls before swine. This has to be taught in a common sense fashion to all. The Rosicrucians were wrong. You don't form systems of keeping this knowledge for those that can afford it or those you deem it worthy to distribute it to. The Freemasons were wrong. You don't form lodge systems where people have to take severe oaths of allegiance to get even a small amount of this knowledge, which in many modern lodge systems they don't even teach. All the former schools of occultism were wrong, no matter who they were or what time period they existed in. And here's the proof to all the dumbasses that believe, oh no, the Freemasons were pure and godlike and they never did anything wrong. Oh no, the Hermeticists, they were the perfect occultists. Those were the ones that had it completely right and nothing they ever said was wrong. It's all a bunch of jackasses following religion. Even within the world of the occult, I may not categorize Freemasonry as a religion, but when it becomes believed in as the only arbiter of truth and reality, it's a religion. There is only an actual arbiter of truth and reality, and that's the force of creation itself, which sets the laws into effect for people to eventually grow to understand. And that's a science. It can't even be given a name. Anarchy is the result of what happens when we obtain that knowledge and live within its boundaries, within the boundary conditions of natural law, and don't try to break it, flout it, get around it, skirt it, etc. We accept it, we understand its workings, we understand how our free will works in conjunction with it, and then we make decisions that align behaviorally to that law that exists as a deterministic component of creation. Then we evolve, and our growth proceeds along a line of maximum benefit for ourselves, and we get what we want, and there's prosperity, and there's freedom, and there's evolution to higher and even more differentiated forms and higher levels of consciousness, awareness, and knowledge. It isn't that difficult to figure out, folks. It's just your ego is in the way. The ego is in the way of seeing how the universe is structured. Most people just don't have a high enough IQ for it. That's why they want religion. You're just going to tell me all the answers, and I'll just say yes, 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 yes. I don't need you to believe me. I'm not your guru. I'm not your... I could point the way and say, you might want to look into this. There's a lot of knowledge there. But again, if people just take one of it, I'm going to just take Thelema as the ultimate religion, and that's it. And anything, if Crowley didn't say it, I don't care. That's a religion. That's where it becomes a fucking religion. That's dumb. If the Hermeticists didn't say it, oh, that can't be part of reality. That's dumb. That's called buying into a religion. If the Rosicrucians at my lodge didn't tell me that that's exactly how it works, then that's off limits. Fucking stupid. That's not how you learn and grow. You got to be eclectic about it. You have to make a wide study of it from a variety of perspectives, and you can't accept everything from one place, nor can you throw the baby out with the bathwater, like atheists do with religion, and therefore reject spirituality. Why is there this psychological resistance to the existence of the occult in general and the knowledge that the occult contains, that is actually contained in it, and that the occult comprises? One of the main psychological barriers is there's such a prevalence of atheism and scientific materialism in the anarchist community. I would say more people who claim to be anarchists than not, unfortunately, believe in so-called scientismic materialism and atheism. Most of them, unfortunately, are not what I would consider spiritual people, or people who have a high degree of actual consciousness that comes through themselves in the form of spirituality. They're very rooted in the material and worldly, and they only look at things from a political or financial perspective, which is why they have their whole worldview wrong and fucked up. It's one of the reasons. They're not considering these things from a consciousness perspective and a morality perspective. Some of them are. Not a blanket statement with any of these things, folks. I'll tell you when I'm making a blanket statement. This largely, let's put the word largely before all of these, okay? Some people in these movements do have it correct and are good people who are trying to enlighten and educate others as well. There's a severe left brain dominance in this community, a lack of spiritual development, unfortunately resulting from the modern outcome-based so-called education system, the indoctrination system of modern schooling. That just about every one of these people in the movement went through the modern public education system. Now, let me just say this, folks. A lot of people will go, oh, Mark's really one of the insiders because he was Jesuit educated, right? Let me tell you something about the Jesuit education. And you could say I'm an apologist. I'm not an apologist for what high-level, dark aspects of the Jesuit society do. They're part of the occult ruling class in just about every area of the world. But let me tell you one thing educationally that the Jesuits do, having had a Jesuit education in high school. They don't tell you what to think. They actually do give you a lot of the tool sets on how to think. And it's one of the things that I'm grateful for, that I didn't go to a bullshit public high school. I went to a Jesuit college preparatory school in Philadelphia that is an entirely different educational tool set than what you're given in the public education world. And they will teach you their religion, but they don't insist that you believe in it like Catholicism will. They'll say, we will teach you why we believe these things, and then we'll give you the logical reasons that we've come to these conclusions, and then you can execute that reasoning and logic for yourself and see if you come to the same conclusions as us. In all honesty, every one of my teachers in my Jesuit high school took that approach to religion. I never had a dogmatic religious teacher. Maybe I was fortunate and had the good teachers in my school, but that is the methodology that they used. And of course, I did use those tool sets, and I did not come to the same conclusion as them. I see it differently, of course. I was not indoctrinated into their belief system of religion. I see a much wider perspective, but in many cases, they do have a general understanding of natural law, even though they have their own series of religious beliefs, etc., that are consistent with other factions and sects of Christianity in many cases and vary wildly from them in others. My point here is that I think there's, at least in some educational systems, still what is being taught is a truth discovery methodology similar to the classical liberal arts education method and the trivium. Not everywhere, though. I was fortunate to have perhaps had the tail end of that when it was still being taught. And that's why I say I would much rather have had my religious, semi-religious Jesuit education, which I think prepared me for critical thinking far more than a state-run so-called education system that is just an outcome-based system of indoctrination. So just a caveat to that second point there. Going on to the third one, most fake-ass anarchists have a belief that secular goals of power and money are the ultimate desires of the ruling class. No, they are not. As I've said many, many, many times, they want the souls of everybody here. It's not just about the accumulation of wealth and power in society. They have a spiritual goal. And they refuse to accept the existence of covert religion at work in our world. Folks, we'll wrap this up and take your calls next week for part 4 of Fake Ass Anarchists. That's all the time we have for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. And remember, government is slavery. We'll see you right here next week.